Welcome, dear dreamer, to a journey through the quiet whispers of the past. Tonight, we'll explore a world where snakes are not feared as monsters, but honored as wise protectors of sacred spaces, gentle guardians of hidden treasures, and silent watchers of ancient temples. These myths, told softly through generations, remind us of a time when nature, mystery, and the divine were deeply entwined. Before we begin, if you love drifting into calm stories from history, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so every night a new tale can guide you into peaceful slumber. In the earliest whispers of human civilization, long before the rise of empires and the forging of monuments from stone, people walked the earth with a profound sense of reverence for the natural world. Among the creatures that inspired both awe and contemplation, none held a place as enigmatic and powerful as the serpent. To many ancient cultures, the snake was not merely an animal, but a sacred presence, a bridge between the human and the divine, the visible and the unseen. Its sinuous form, gliding effortlessly through water and earth alike, became a symbol of protection, wisdom, and the silent, watchful guardianship of spaces deemed holy. It is in this context that snakes were revered as temple guardians, stationed at entrances of sacred spaces to guide, warn, and protect, ensuring that only those deemed worthy could pass through the threshold into the realm of the divine. In ancient Egypt, the snake's symbolism was deeply entwined with the concept of divine protection and cosmic order. The cobra, particularly, held a place of great reverence and was often depicted on the foreheads of pharaohs as the uraeus, a stylized, upright form of the serpent that embodied both sovereignty and vigilance. Temples and sacred precincts were adorned with carved and sculpted serpents, coiled and ready to strike, yet never in aggression toward the faithful. They were protectors, embodying the energy of the goddess Wajet, a deity who safeguarded the land and its rulers. These serpents were imagined as ever watchful, their eyes following the movements of all who approached the sacred halls. A traveler arriving at an Egyptian temple would not merely see a statue. They would feel the quiet presence of a guardian that had existed for centuries, a symbol that the temple's sanctity was preserved by forces beyond human comprehension. Every step toward the altar was measured against the silent scrutiny of the serpent, whose presence reminded worshippers of the gravity of their intentions, the purity of their heart, and the respect owed to the gods. Moving eastward, the temples of India offer another vivid illustration of the snake as a guardian. Across the subcontinent, snakes were associated with the Nagas, semi-divine serpentine beings who were believed to inhabit rivers, lakes, and underground realms. The Nagas were protectors of treasures and sacred knowledge, and their images often graced the entrances of temples, coiled elegantly around pillars, staircases, and doorways. Their presence was not intended to intimidate, but to maintain a balance, a quiet boundary between the profane world outside and the sanctified space within. Devotees approaching a temple would find themselves enveloped in an atmosphere of calm vigilance, where the Naga's eyes, often depicted in intricate carvings or mosaic patterns, seemed to observe without judgment. These guardians reminded all who entered of the spiritual responsibility that came with stepping into a sacred space, a reminder that devotion and reverence were as essential as the offerings one brought. In Mesoamerica, the story of the snake as a temple guardian takes on forms both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Across civilizations such as the Aztec and the Maya, serpents were often linked to creation myths in the underworld, embodying both life and death, fertility and protection. The feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl, revered by the Aztecs, combined the grounded, earthy power of the serpent with the ethereal grace of the bird, symbolizing the duality of the cosmos. Temples dedicated to Quetzalcoatl often featured serpent motifs coiling along staircases and walls, their forms stretching skyward, as if connecting the mortal and divine realms. These serpents were not merely decorative. They served as metaphors for vigilance and spiritual discernment, ensuring that only those who approached with respect and humility could reach the heart of the temple. To witness these serpentine forms was to be reminded of the sacred order of the universe, of the thin lines separating human curiosity from divine truth, and of the quiet, ever-present guardians that watched over all who dared enter the sacred domain. Across these distant lands and cultures, a common thread emerges. The snake is an intermediary, a sentinel that bridges worlds. It is neither passive nor aggressive, but embodies a form of awareness that humans both fear and revere. The act of placing a serpent at a temple entrance was never purely aesthetic. It was a deliberate, symbolic choice, a way of aligning the physical space with spiritual truths. The serpent's presence was a living metaphor for the vigilance required of both worshippers and priests. It reminded them that sacred knowledge and divine favor were not freely given, but earned through respect, intention, and moral clarity. In this way, the snake became a teacher of subtle lessons, its silent watch a gentle guide for those willing to listen. Even the materials and artistry used to depict these guardians held significance. In Egypt, the cobras might be crafted from gleaming gold, their curves catching the sun or flickering torchlight to create an almost lifelike shimmer, evoking a sense of movement despite their solid form. In India, the nagas could be rendered in stone or bronze, their scales intricately detailed, each curve a testament to the devotion of the sculptors who understood the sacred responsibility of their work. In Mesoamerica, serpents might be carved into stepped pyramids or woven into murals, their elongated bodies echoing the architecture itself, becoming inseparable from the temple's form. Every coil, every eye, every forked tongue held meaning, a quiet reminder that the guardian was always present, observing the intentions of all who approached. And that respect for the sacred required more than mere proximity. It required mindfulness. The role of the snake as temple guardian also extended into ritual and daily practice. In many cultures, priests would invoke the serpent's protection before ceremonies, speaking prayers and offering tributes that honored the guardian's presence. The faithful, too, might leave small offerings or gestures of respect at the entrance, acknowledging the snake as a living bridge between themselves and the divine. Even when unseen, the serpent's symbolism permeated the spiritual atmosphere, creating a sense of calm vigilance. One could imagine walking through a temple courtyard at dawn, the soft light illuminating the coiled forms of stone snakes, feeling an unspoken assurance that the space was protected, that every corner held a quiet, watchful presence. There was no fear here, only reverence, and a sense of being part of a greater order, watched over by creatures both real and symbolic, embodiments of wisdom and continuity. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of the snake as a guardian is its quiet universality. Across continents, centuries, and civilizations, humans have repeatedly turned to the serpent as a symbol of vigilance, protection, and sacred wisdom. While the forms differ, an Egyptian cobra, an Indian naga, a Mesoamerican feathered serpent, the essence remains the same. A creature that watches, teaches, and preserves the sanctity of the spaces it inhabits. It reminds us that sacredness is not merely architectural or ceremonial. It is relational, dynamic, and ever-present. The snake coiled at the temple entrance silently reminds all who enter that their journey into the sacred is both a privilege and a responsibility. As the centuries passed, these myths endured, carried in carvings, stories, and the quiet reverence of generations. Though many of the temples themselves may now lie in ruins, the symbolism of the snake remains, a reminder that the guardianship of sacred spaces is not merely physical but spiritual, protection of ideas, values, and cosmic balance. And even now, when one walks through the ruins of an ancient temple or gazes upon a carefully preserved statue of a coiled serpent, one can sense the lingering presence of these timeless guardians, quietly watching, quietly teaching, and quietly protecting the boundary between the ordinary and the divine. In the end, the snake as temple guardian teaches a gentle lesson for all who listen. Vigilance need not be harsh, and protection need not be violent. True guardianship is calm, measured, and patient. It observes without judgment, guides without force, and preserves without interruption. As you imagine these serpents coiled at the entrances of temples in Egypt, India, and Mesoamerica, picture them not as threats, but as quiet sentinels, holding space for wisdom, reverence, and the sacred mysteries of the world. In their silent watch, there is peace. In their enduring presence, there is a connection that spans continents and centuries, a reminder that some guardians never sleep, and some wisdom never fades. And so the next time you think of a snake, imagine it coiled at the threshold of an ancient temple, watching calmly, allowing only the worthy to step across, a quiet protector of history, a gentle guide into the sacred, and a timeless symbol of vigilance and peace. In the earliest whispers of human civilization, before the rise of cities and monumental structures, before the world was mapped and borders drawn, humans walked the earth with an acute awareness of the sacred. Nature itself was alive with meaning. Rivers, trees, mountains, and animals were not merely objects, but messengers, protectors, and symbols. Among these beings, one creature emerged across continents as a symbol of vigilance, protection, and quiet power: the serpent. Its sinuous form moving effortlessly through water, earth, and occasionally sky in the myths of many cultures, became an embodiment of watchfulness, a silent guardian bridging the mortal and divine realms. Long before human hands shaped temples, the serpent had already earned a place in the imagination as a keeper of thresholds, a protector of secrets, and a mediator between the human and the sacred. In ancient Egypt, the snake held a particularly revered and multifaceted role. The cobra, upright and poised, was more than a creature. It was a divine symbol, a sentinel whose presence marked the boundary between the earthly and the eternal. Known as the uraeus, the stylized form of the cobra appeared on the crowns of pharaohs, representing not only their divine authority, but also their constant guardianship by the gods. The uraeus embodied the protective energy of the goddess Wajet, deity whose watchful eyes were believed to shield the land and its rulers from harm. Beyond royal iconography, cobras were integrated into temple entrances, carved in stone or molded in precious metals, coiled in a silent, eternal vigil. For worshippers approaching these sacred spaces, the serpent was both guide and guardian, reminding them that entry into the divine required intention, reverence, and purity of heart. Each step toward the altar was measured not only against the physical layout of the temple, but also against the moral and spiritual presence of the coiled guardian, whose gaze seemed to follow every movement with unblinking awareness. The temples themselves, often surrounded by vast courtyards and adorned with intricate carvings, became sanctuaries where the serpent's symbolism permeated every stone. The presence of the snake at the entrance was both literal and metaphorical. Cobras, depicted with flared hoods and poised for action, conveyed a sense of alertness, yet they were not intended to evoke fear, but respect. Their positioning reminded worshippers that the sacred was not to be approached casually. Within these walls, ceremonies unfolded, prayers were offered, and rituals were performed, all under the metaphorical eyes of the serpent. The symbolism extended to the design of the temple, where the serpentine forms guided the flow of movement, encouraging slow, deliberate steps, reflective thought, and mindful participation in the rites. In this way, the snake became not merely a guardian of space, but a teacher of presence, instilling a quiet sense of mindfulness in every devotee who crossed the threshold. Traveling east to the Indian subcontinent, one finds a similar yet distinct manifestation of the serpent as a temple guardian. Across India, the Nagas, semi-divine serpentine beings, inhabited rivers, lakes, and underground realms, and their protective influence extended into the architecture of sacred spaces. Temples often featured Nagas carved in stone, bronze, or terracotta, their long, coiled bodies wrapping around staircases, pillars, and doorways, their eyes carved or painted to seem ever watchful. Unlike the Egyptian cobra, which often symbolized royal authority, the Naga embodied both protection and the flow of spiritual energy. They were keepers of hidden treasures, sacred knowledge, and natural harmony, guarding not only the physical temple but the metaphysical space of devotion, learning, and reflection within. Devotees approaching these temples could sense the quiet presence of these guardians, whose coiled forms seemed to pulse with the energy of the water and earth, reminding worshippers that the sacred was alive, dynamic, and to be approached with humility. The stories associated with Nagas often extend beyond mere guardianship to lessons in morality, patience, and respect. Ancient texts describe how Nagas would allow passage only to those who demonstrated understanding, purity, or perseverance. Travelers, pilgrims, and priests who approached without reverence were met with gentle reminders, obstacles, or detours, guiding them to reflect inwardly before stepping fully into the sacred space. This integration of myth, morality, and architecture created a holistic spiritual experience, where the serpent served as a bridge between human intention and divine expectation. Walking through a temple courtyard in India, One might imagine the Nagas observing silently, their presence felt rather than seen, like a soft whisper reminding every visitor of their connection to both the natural and divine worlds. In Mesoamerica, particularly among the Maya and Aztec civilizations, the snake as a temple guardian took on a different yet equally profound form. The feathered serpent, known as Quetzalcoatl among the Aztecs, represented a fusion of earthly power and celestial grace. Its body, serpentine and grounded, intertwined with feathers, wings, or celestial imagery, symbolized the duality of existence, life and death, earth and sky, mortal and divine. Temples dedicated to Quetzalcoatl often featured serpentine motifs along staircases, walls, and altars, creating the impression that the temple itself was alive, coiled and stretching toward the heavens. For worshippers ascending these stepped pyramids, the serpent's form guided their journey upward, encouraging contemplation of cosmic order and spiritual growth. The feathered serpent was not merely decorative, it embodied vigilance, wisdom, and protection, ensuring that the sacred space was approached with reverence and mindfulness. Mesoamerican serpents were deeply intertwined with creation myths and the cycles of life. They were believed to inhabit rivers, mountains, and underworld passages, silently observing human activity and maintaining balance. The serpent's guardianship was less about preventing entry and more about aligning intention with spiritual truth. To approach a temple without respect was to disrupt the cosmic harmony. To approach with humility was to participate in the ongoing narrative of creation, renewal, and divine connection. Kurswerker, the temples, their steps, and their serpentine adornments formed a choreography of reverence, movement, and observation, guiding humans in both physical ascent and spiritual awakening. Across these diverse civilizations, common themes emerge. Snake is a threshold guardian, a silent observer, and a mediator between worlds. Its role extends beyond physical protection to encompass spiritual vigilance, moral guidance, and metaphysical guardianship. By placing serpents at temple entrances, cultures across continents acknowledged the necessity of respect, mindfulness, and purity in engaging with the sacred. These guardians served as teachers as much as protectors, reminding humans that entry into holy spaces is a privilege, a journey that requires intention, presence, and moral clarity. The materials, forms, and artistry used to depict these serpents further enhanced their presence. Egyptian cobras glimmered in gold and precious stone, capturing light in a way that suggested life and motion. Indian nagas were intricately detailed in stone or bronze, each scale and coil reflecting the devotion and skill of the artisans who understood the sacred responsibility of their craft. In Mesoamerica, serpents were carved into pyramid steps, woven into murals, and integrated into architecture, becoming inseparable from the structure of the temple itself. Every curve, eye, and tongue served as a subtle reminder of the vigilance that existed beyond human perception. A quiet presence that demanded reflection and reverence beyond architecture. The serpent's guardianship extended into ritual practice. Priests would invoke the serpent's protection before ceremonies, offering prayers, incense, or symbolic gestures that honored their presence. Worshippers often left offerings at the base of serpentine carvings, acknowledging that the sacred space was maintained not only by human devotion but by timeless, silent forces that observed with patience and discernment. In this way, the temple, the serpent, and the devotee became interconnected, forming a triad of sacred awareness that spanned the material and spiritual worlds. The enduring symbolism of the snake also reflects humanity's recognition of the cycles of life and nature. Shedding its skin, the serpent embodies renewal, transformation, and the quiet passage of time. Its vigilance is patient, unhurried, and enduring, reminding humans that protection, wisdom, and sacredness are not fleeting, but cultivated over generations. Snake's presence at temple entrances encourages reflection, teaching that spiritual growth is a journey, not a destination, and that every step toward the sacred must be accompanied by mindfulness, humility, and respect. Even now, in the present day, when walking through the ruins of an ancient Egyptian temple, gazing upon an Indian Naga's carved staircase, or ascending the steps of a Mesoamerican pyramid, one can sense the lingering presence of these serpents. Their watchful energy transcends centuries, reminding us that sacredness is preserved not only in stone or artifact, but in intention, respect, and the quiet acknowledgement of forces greater than ourselves. The temple may crumble, the civilization may fade, yet the symbolism endures. The snake continues to teach, to guard, and to guide, a timeless sentinel at the threshold of human consciousness. The story of the serpent as temple guardian is, in essence, a story of connection between humans and the divine, between past and present, between the seen and the unseen. It is a narrative that transcends fear and fascination, emphasizing vigilance tempered with calm, protection coupled with patience, and authority expressed through quiet wisdom. As one imagines these guardians coiled at temple entrances across continents and centuries, it becomes clear that the serpent embodies a universal truth. Sacredness is both fragile and enduring, that respect and mindfulness are eternal, and that true guardianship is measured not by force, but by quiet presence, patient observation, and unwavering care. And so, when considering the snake at the temple entrance, one should not see a threat, nor a mere decoration, but a living symbol of vigilance, morality, and spiritual guardianship. Its coils are the pathways of wisdom, its gaze the reflection of intention, its silent watch, a gentle guidance that spans time and culture. Across Egypt, India, and Mesoamerica, the serpent teaches a lesson as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Sacred spaces are not entered lightly, nor with haste, but with respect, calm, and mindfulness. Under the eternal watch of the timeless guardians who have observed humanity's journey through the quiet corridors of history, and so we leave the temple entrance behind in our imagination, the silent serpent coiled and resting, watching over a space that stretches beyond time. Its vigilance is eternal, its purpose serene, and its lesson clear. The sacred is preserved not by fear or violence, but by patience, reverence, and the quiet, unwavering presence of those who guard it. The coiled guardian waits, ever patient, a reminder that true wisdom and protection exist in stillness, in observation, and in the respect we bring when we step into the sacred spaces of the world. In the quiet corners of the world, where water meets land and the wind whispers softly through reeds and over rippling surfaces, humanity has long imagined creatures of mystery dwelling beneath the glassy calm. Among these beings, serpents emerge repeatedly in myth and folklore, but not as creatures of terror. In the lakes, ponds, and still waters of Japan, Europe, and Africa, these serpents are gentle, protective spirits, guardians of nature's balance and watchers of the delicate harmony between humans and the natural world. They are creatures of serenity, embodying patience and wisdom, and their myths often carry a quiet moral. That respect, calm, and harmony are the highest virtues. As we drift through the tales of these gentle lake spirits, we encounter a world in which serpents are not feared, but revered, silent custodians of waters that reflect both the earth above and the mysteries below. In Japan, the serpent lake spirits are often associated with rivers and lakes nestled amidst mountains and misty forests. One of the most renowned is the legend of the white serpent of Lake Biwa. In this tale, a colossal white snake lived beneath the still waters, rarely seen by humans, yet always aware of their actions along the shore. It was said that those who approached the lake with humility and respect might witness glimpses of its shimmering form beneath the surface, or hear a soft hiss carried on the wind, like the gentle ripple of water itself. The white serpent was a guardian of harmony, ensuring that the villagers fished only what they needed, left offerings of gratitude, and treated the surrounding forest with care. Those who disrupted the natural order faced not punishment in the traditional sense, but gentle reminders, small misfortunes or disturbances in the water, nudging them back toward respect for the serene balance of life. Japanese lake serpent myths often intertwine with Shinto beliefs, where every aspect of nature is alive with kami, or spirits, deserving of reverence. The lake itself is considered sacred, and the serpent embodies its spirit. Temples and shrines near these waters sometimes feature serpentine carvings or statues, coiled gracefully to mirror the fluidity of the lake's edge. Fishermen, travelers, and monks would offer small gifts, such as rice or incense, not to appease a dangerous creature, but to acknowledge the presence of a guardian whose watchfulness ensured harmony and abundance. Even at night, when fog drifts across the water, local storytellers say one can feel the serpent's gaze, soft and omnipresent, maintaining balance quietly, patiently and without judgment. Turning westward to Europe, serpents of the lake take on forms that intertwine with both folklore and history, inhabiting misty highland lakes, forest ponds, and hidden waterways. In Scotland, for example, tales speak of the lake serpent in Loch Ness, a creature so elusive that its presence is suggested rather than confirmed, a quiet guardian of deep, dark waters. Local legends describe the serpent as intelligent and aware, surfacing only when necessary, never harming humans unless they disrupted the balance of its domain. Across other European lakes, from Ireland's Loch Corrib to Switzerland's Alpine lakes, serpentine myths convey similar messages. That the waters are alive, inhabited by gentle yet watchful beings, and that humans are part of a larger rhythm that must be respected. These serpents, often invisible to casual observers, are sometimes described as long, sinuous shadows beneath the surface, moving with deliberate grace, embodying the patience and stillness of the lakes themselves. European lake serpent myths are often entwined with cautionary tales. They remind humans to tread lightly, to respect the boundaries of nature, and to recognize that the earth is not merely a resource but a living, breathing entity. In Japan, festivals near sacred lakes might include offerings and ceremonies intended to honor the serpent spirit and ensure balance in fishing, farming, or village life. In European villages, certain lakes were historically considered sacred, with taboos against overfishing, reflecting a cultural acknowledgement of the lake's guardian. In Africa, offerings and prayers to water spirits were integrated into agricultural cycles and community rituals, ensuring that both humans and serpents worked in concert to maintain prosperity and balance. Across continents, the myths emphasize that the serpent's guardianship is not passive but interactive. Humans are called to recognize and respect it, to observe its presence and live in accordance with its teachings. The stories also reveal a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of life. The lake serpent is never alone. It is part of a larger ecosystem that humans inhabit. Its movements beneath the surface affect fish, plants, and even the weather and mythic imagination. By embodying the harmony of the water, the serpent becomes a lens through which humans can understand their own role within the natural world. Its patient vigilance teaches that balance is maintained not through force or dominance, but through awareness, respect, and deliberate, gentle action. In this way, the serpent's myth becomes a philosophy, a quiet guide for living in attunement with the rhythms of nature. Even in the modern world, the presence of lake serpents persists in cultural memory. Tourists and locals alike visit misty Japanese lakes, Mesoamerica, and shimmering African rivers with an awareness, conscious or unconscious, of the stories that have flowed through generations. Though the serpents themselves may never be seen, the myths imbue these waters with a sense of calm, mystery, and reverence. Observing the still surface, one can imagine the guardian gliding beneath, its presence subtle yet profound, reminding all who watch that life is delicate, balance is sacred, and harmony is the most enduring treasure. The gentle lake serpent myths also speak to the human desire for guardianship that is calm and non-threatening. Unlike creatures of fearsome legend, these serpents are patient and measured. They do not act out of anger or vengeance, but out of a desire to maintain equilibrium. They are reminders that true protection is often quiet, that the most profound guardianship is sometimes invisible, and that the wisdom of the natural world is patient, subtle, and enduring. The lake serpent embodies a philosophy of restraint, teaching that intervention is necessary only when harmony is disrupted. And even then, it is guided by balance rather than retribution. In contemplating the myths of lake serpents from Japan, Europe, and Africa, a profound lesson emerges. These gentle guardians encourage us to slow down, to observe, and to approach the world with mindfulness. They remind us that our actions have consequences beyond our immediate perception, and that living in harmony with nature requires respect, patience, and care. They embody the quiet power of observation, the enduring strength of patience, and the beauty of vigilance that is gentle rather than harsh. Across cultures, these serpents illustrate a universal truth, that harmony, whether in human communities or the natural world, must be maintained through respect, understanding, and the quiet presence of those who watch over it. As the sun rises and sets over misty lakes, as reeds sway and water ripples softly, one can imagine the gentle serpent gliding beneath, ever watchful, ever patient. Its gaze is not threatening, but instructive, a calm presence reminding all who dwell nearby that life is a delicate balance, and that serenity and harmony are nurtured through respect, care, and mindfulness. It is a creature that transcends fear, one whose mythology invites humans to embrace the rhythms of the natural world, to recognize the sacredness in stillness, and to honor the quiet guardianship that sustains life across centuries and continents. In the end, the lake serpent is more than myth. It is a reflection of humanity's longing for balance, a symbol of patience, wisdom, and gentle protection. From the misty lakes of Japan to the deep, shadowed waters of European highlands, to the shimmering rivers and sacred ponds of Africa, the gentle serpents of legend watch silently, ensuring that harmony endures. They remind us that true guardianship is quiet, enduring, and serene, and that the most profound lessons often come not in force, but in stillness, observation, and respect. And as we leave these imagined waters behind, we carry with us the soft, enduring presence of the lake serpent, a reminder that harmony is both fragile and eternal, and that the quiet guardians of nature continue their vigil, ever patient, ever calm, and ever wise. In the quiet corners of the world, where the mist hovers low over still waters and the gentle wind stirs the reeds, humanity has long imagined beings of mystery, guardians of the natural order, and custodians of hidden wisdom. Among these creatures, the serpent emerges again and again in myths, but unlike the fearsome, terrifying snakes of other stories, these are gentle beings, patient and calm, watching over lakes, rivers, and ponds. In Japan, Europe, and Africa, these serpents dwell beneath serene waters, guiding and maintaining balance, quietly ensuring that life flows in harmony with the rhythm of the natural world. Their myths are soft yet profound, carrying the timeless reminder that respect, patience, and care are essential for the continuity of life, and that true guardianship is often unseen, quiet, and enduring. In Japan, the myths of lake serpents are deeply intertwined with the land, the seasons, and Shinto beliefs that every part of nature contains spirits, or kami. One of the most famous legends speaks of a white serpent residing in the deep, tranquil waters of Lake Biwa. This serpent, massive and luminous, rarely revealed itself to humans, preferring to glide beneath the surface where the sunlight dappled the water like scattered pearls. Villagers believed the serpent maintained the harmony of the lake, ensuring that fish populations thrived, that the surrounding wetlands remained lush, and that travelers and fishermen approached with humility. Those who showed care and gratitude were often blessed with bountiful catches or clear waters, while those who were reckless, greedy, or disrespectful would encounter subtle warnings. A sudden ripple that startled the surface, a small storm that swirled the reeds, or a fish that mysteriously escaped the net. These gentle interventions were never meant to harm but to teach mindfulness, the quiet rhythm of reciprocity between humans and nature, and the understanding that the lake, like the serpent, is alive with silent intelligence. Near Lake Biwa, temples and shrines often feature carvings of serpents or elongated, flowing motifs in the architecture. These images are not simply decorative, they serve as a reminder. Pilgrims approaching the sacred sites were encouraged to pause, breathe, and recognize that their journey into the temple was both physical and spiritual. The serpents mirrored the flow of the water, their sinuous forms a lesson in patience, reminding worshippers that just as the lake moves slowly and quietly, so too should human intention be deliberate and respectful. Even today, local folklore maintains that on foggy mornings, a shimmer beneath the water may be glimpsed, a white coil gliding slowly, observing without judgment, a guardian whose vigilance is serene and eternal. The Japanese myths extend beyond Lake Biwa, across other lakes and rivers, each with serpentine guardians that embody local lessons and wisdom. In the mountain lakes of Nagano, for example, legends speak of a serpent whose scales glint like polished stone under the sun, residing in waters that reflect the sky. Travelers who disturb the delicate balance of reeds or fished recklessly were met with soft ripples or an unsettling chill that reminded them to proceed with care. In the folklore of coastal rivers, serpents were often connected to rainfall and fertility, their movements beneath the water symbolizing the flow of life itself. In these myths, the serpent is a teacher, a guide, and a reminder that humans are merely one part of a larger system, and that respect for all living beings is not only ethical, Essential for survival. Traveling westward to Europe, lake serpent myths take on forms that blend history, legend, and mystery. The Scottish Highlands are perhaps the most famous with their tales of serpentine beings in deep, shadowed lochs. Loch Ness, though known to modern audiences for its elusive Nessie, has roots in older folklore where the serpent was considered a guardian of the lake rather than a monster. Ancient tales describe a creature with a long, graceful body gliding silently beneath the waters, occasionally surfacing in calm mornings to observe travelers and villagers. It was believed that the serpent ensured the lake's ecological balance, protecting the fish, maintaining the purity of the water, and preserving the serenity of the surrounding forests. Those who ventured too far without respect might find the waters stirred in unusual ways, a gentle warning rather than a threat, nudging them toward awareness of their actions. Across Europe, from the lakes of Ireland to the hidden ponds of the Alps, serpents in folklore often serve as intermediaries between humans and the natural world. In Ireland, a lake serpent might be described as a shadow moving beneath the reeds, its eyes glowing faintly in the twilight, ensuring that those who fish or gather water approach with humility. In Switzerland, alpine legends speak of a serpent whose coils wind beneath the frozen surfaces of high-altitude lakes, unseen but deeply connected to the life that depends on the water. These creatures are patient and observant. Their presence a reminder that the health of the environment is inseparable from human action, that harmony requires constant attention, and that guardianship is not about punishment, but about balance and education. European lake serpents are also woven into cautionary tales, often subtle in their teaching rather than overtly frightening. Stories tell of villagers who attempted to overfish or pollute sacred lakes only to experience small, mysterious consequences. Water suddenly became murky, fish disappeared, or nets broke. These interventions were never harmful but served to reinforce the ethic of stewardship and respect. The serpent's patient presence ensures that humans remain conscious of their impact, teaching that wisdom is demonstrated not through fear, but through gentle guidance and observation. In every tale, the lake serpent embodies the virtues of calm, vigilance, and longevity, and its myths encourage people to listen, to watch, and to act in harmony with the natural world. In Africa, the lake serpent takes on forms both vivid and deeply symbolic, often entwined with local religious beliefs and spiritual practices. Among the Yoruba people of West Africa, certain rivers and lakes are believed to house serpentine deities that maintain the fertility of the land, the flow of water, and the prosperity of the people. These serpents are often depicted as enormous, coiled beneath the surface, their scales glimmering in iridescent patterns, and their eyes luminous even in the faintest light. They are not dangerous, rather, they are guardians and teachers, embodying patience, wisdom, and the principles of balance and reciprocity. Villagers offer fruits, ceremonial objects, or symbolic tokens to honor these guardians, acknowledging that the well-being of the community is intertwined with the serenity and vigilance of the lake spirits. African lake serpents also embody the cycles of life, particularly in relation to water, fertility, and agriculture. Stories describe the serpent emerging when balance is disrupted, or when the community forgets to respect the rhythms of planting, harvesting, and rainfall. Yet even in these interventions, the creature is calm and deliberate, restoring harmony without violence. Children are taught about the serpent from a young age, not as a source of fear, but as a guide in moral and ecological understanding. They learn that the lake and its guardian are alive, that every action has consequences, and that respect and attentiveness to the natural world are crucial for sustaining life. Across Japan, Europe, and Africa, lake serpents share a common thread. They are silent, gentle, and patient guardians of harmony. Their myths emphasize that protection is not about aggression or punishment, but about maintaining balance and teaching mindfulness. The serpents encourage humans to observe carefully, act respectfully, and cultivate a sense of wonder and reverence for the world around them. Their presence, whether imagined or symbolically represented, embodies a philosophy that extends beyond folklore, that harmony, patience, and vigilance are the most enduring forms of guardianship, and that true wisdom often manifests in quiet, unassuming ways. The imagery of these serpents is as diverse as it is beautiful. In Japan, they may glimmer like silver threads beneath the surface of a serene lake, moving with the fluidity of water itself. In Europe, they are long, shadowed figures, their shapes reflecting the stillness of lochs and ponds, a dark mirror of the sky above. In Africa, they are radiant and luminous, their scales reflecting sunlight or moonlight in a kaleidoscope of colors, embodying the life force of the water and land they protect. Across continents, the serpents form mirrors the unique geography, ecology, and spiritual values of each culture, but the message remains the same. Vigilance, harmony, and respect are eternal virtues, embodied by these patient guardians of still waters. The legends often describe rituals, offerings, and communal acts of reverence that reinforce the relationship between humans and the serpent spirits. In Japan, festivals might honor the lake and its guardian, offering small gifts of rice or coins, or performing dances and songs that celebrate the harmony of nature. In Europe, lakes were often considered sacred, and customs evolved to prevent overuse or disrespect, reflecting the awareness of a hidden guardian's watchful presence. In Africa, ceremonial offerings to water spirits ensure that the community remains in balance with seasonal cycles and ecological needs. In all cases, humans are called to act with mindfulness, recognizing that the serpent's vigilance is gentle but constant, and that harmony depends on human cooperation and care. Beyond folklore, the lake serpent symbolizes broader lessons about life and the natural world. Its presence teaches patience, the importance of observation, and the quiet strength of endurance. Unlike guardians of fearsome myth, these serpents act not through force but through subtle guidance, reinforcing the idea that wisdom and protection can be calm, invisible, and enduring. They remind humans that life is a web of interconnected forces, that balance is maintained through respect and care, and that harmony is a living principle, not a static state. Even today, the stories of lake serpents continue to inspire reverence and reflection. Travelers and locals visiting misty Japanese lakes, shadowed European lochs, or shimmering African rivers are reminded of the guardians who dwell beneath the surface. Though rarely seen, these serpents persist in memory, legend, and imagination. Their silent watch a lesson in patience, mindfulness, and respect. The ripples on the water, the flicker of scales beneath sunlight, the shimmer of moonlight reflecting in still waters, all evoke the enduring presence of these gentle, vigilant spirits. Across continents and centuries, the lake serpent remains a symbol of balance and guardianship. Its myths teach that the most profound protection is quiet, that wisdom often manifests in patience, and that the harmony of life requires awareness and care. The serpents of Japan, Europe, and Africa remind us that sacredness exists not only in temples or rituals, but in the natural world, that life is a cycle of observation and respect, and that the guardianship of harmony is a timeless and universal principle. As one imagines the serene waters of a Japanese lake, the mist rising over a European loch, or the shimmering surface of an African river at dusk, one can sense the gentle serpent gliding beneath, ever watchful, ever patient, and ever wise. Its presence is calm, its lessons subtle, and its guardianship enduring. The lake serpent teaches that harmony is both fragile and eternal, that vigilance can be gentle, and that the most enduring wisdom is often silent, flowing as quietly and steadily as the waters it protects. In the end, the gentle lake serpent is more than a creature of myth. It is a symbol of balance, patience, and quiet strength. From the misty lakes of Japan to the hidden lochs of Europe, to the sacred rivers and ponds of Africa, the serpent continues to glide beneath the surface, watching, teaching, and maintaining the harmony of life. Its story is timeless, a reminder that respect, care, and mindfulness are the true guardians of our world, and that sometimes the most profound presence is the one that moves silently beneath the surface, unseen but always felt. In the quiet folds of history where myth and reality intertwine, the serpent has long been more than just a creature of flesh and scale. Across cultures and continents, these beings are not always feared for their bite or their venom, but revered as keepers of wisdom, protectors of treasures, and guardians of knowledge too powerful or sacred for careless hands. From the hidden chambers of ancient temples to the depths of forgotten caves, serpents have slithered silently, coiling around relics, manuscripts, and gemstones, watching patiently and teaching humankind subtle lessons about respect, patience, and the responsibility that comes with curiosity. Unlike monsters of fear, these serpents embody vigilance, wisdom, and the quiet enforcement of sacred boundaries, ensuring that only those with reverence and understanding can claim the treasures of the world. Their stories are not tales of terror but of guidance, gentle yet firm, teaching that the pursuit of knowledge and wealth is intertwined with mindfulness and humility. In ancient Mesopotamia, the earliest civilizations spoke of serpents guarding hidden knowledge within the ziggurats, the towering temples built to bridge earth and heaven. These massive structures, with their ascending terraces and hidden chambers, were considered repositories of divine wisdom, where sacred texts, ceremonial objects, and secret rites were preserved. The serpent, often represented in carvings coiled around staircases or etched along the walls of inner sanctums, was not a threat but a reminder. Its unblinking gaze encouraged reverence and patience, teaching that the journey toward wisdom was gradual and deliberate. Those who rushed or acted with greed often found the temple's hidden knowledge inaccessible, while those who approached with humility and persistence were guided, sometimes by subtle signs, a glimmer of light reflecting off a coiled statue, a shifting shadow across the wall, or the gentle hiss that echoed in quiet corridors. Toward understanding. The serpent in these stories is both guardian and teacher, ensuring that sacred knowledge remains intact and that the seeker's intent is pure. Across the ancient world, Egypt provides another remarkable illustration of the serpent as keeper of treasure. Beyond their role as protectors of temples, Egyptian myths speak of serpents entwined around sacred relics, guarding amulets, scrolls, and tomb treasures from those unworthy of their power. Joe. The Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, symbolized eternity, cycles, and the continuity of divine protection, often associated with hidden chambers containing precious objects and esoteric wisdom. Priests and scribes understood that these treasures were not simply material wealth, but conduits of divine connection, insight, and ritual authority. The serpent's coiled form, often placed at thresholds or around sacred boxes, communicated a simple yet profound message. Respect, patience, and mindfulness were prerequisites for access. A single careless movement or disrespectful gesture could render the treasures invisible, inaccessible, or, metaphorically, lost until the seeker learned the value of calm observation and restraint. In this way, the serpent's guardianship was an active, enduring lesson in reverence, teaching that sacred treasures are entwined with responsibility and moral awareness. In India, the concept of serpents guarding sacred knowledge extends into the lore of Nagas and celestial serpents, often described as protectors of hidden texts, manuscripts, and relics within temple vaults or mountain caves. The Nagas were associated not only with material treasures, but with profound spiritual knowledge, including medicinal wisdom, philosophical teachings, and esoteric understanding that could transform the lives of those prepared to learn. Stories tell of seekers journeying to sacred caves where the Nagas resided, encountering coiled serpents whose presence alone inspired awe and contemplation. The serpent did not threaten those who approached respectfully, but would obstruct or mislead the impatient and the greedy, guiding the worthy to insights through patience and discernment. These myths illustrate that access to knowledge is not merely about possession, but about the cultivation of humility, observation, and inner readiness. The serpent, silent and watchful, ensures that the treasure's power is preserved for those who will honor it, not squander it. Mesoamerican cultures also revered serpents as keepers of sacred treasures, linking them to both earthly wealth and cosmic knowledge. In Aztec and Maya lore, serpents were often depicted coiled around temples, altars, and sacred artifacts, guarding objects imbued with ritual power or celestial significance. The feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, embodied not just creation and wisdom, but the careful stewardship of sacred objects, reminding priests and devotees alike that divine treasures required respect. Legends recount seekers who attempted to claim these treasures without reverence, finding their paths obstructed or their understanding incomplete. The serpent's vigilant presence enforced the idea that sacred power is inseparable from moral intention, and that the true treasure is not material alone, but the wisdom and responsibility that accompany it. In these myths, the serpent becomes a bridge between the physical and metaphysical, guiding humans to integrate knowledge with ethical awareness. Beyond temples and religious sites, serpents guarding treasures appear in folklore surrounding natural landscapes. Across Europe, caves, lakes, and forests were often believed to conceal hidden gems, gold, or ancient relics, with serpents slithering silently to oversee them. The tales often describe seekers wandering into hidden grottos or submerged caves, only to find that patience, observation, and respect were required to even glimpse the treasures within. Those who moved with care might notice subtle signs: a reflective scale catching the light, a ripple in an underground pool, or a soft hiss that seemed to guide them toward their goal. Those who rushed or acted without thought would find the treasures concealed once more, teaching that the reward for mindfulness is access, while the reward for impatience is obscurity. Across generations, these myths reinforce the idea that wisdom and wealth are inseparable from the moral discipline of patience and reverence. In African traditions, serpents are often depicted as guardians of not only material wealth but also spiritual treasures, sacred objects, ritual tools, and secret knowledge that could guide entire communities. The Dahomey Yoruba and other West African cultures tell stories of enormous serpents residing in hidden lakes or forested caves, coiled around sacred relics and manuscripts. These serpents embody vigilance and foresight, responding to human intent rather than threatening harm. Stories describe villagers leaving offerings of food, ritual cloth, or ceremonial tokens to acknowledge the serpent's guardianship. Those who approached with care, humility, and patience were sometimes granted glimpses of hidden treasures, while the disrespectful found that the treasures seemed to vanish, hidden by the serpent's quiet influence. These myths emphasize that knowledge, power, and wealth are not simply possessed. They are earned through mindful action, patience, and moral awareness. Across cultures, a recurring theme emerges: the serpent as keeper of treasure is rarely aggressive or malicious. Its role is protective, educational, and deeply symbolic. The treasure, whether a physical artifact, a scroll of knowledge, or a sacred relic, is entwined with the serpent's vigilance, and accessing it requires more than curiosity. It requires respect, observation, and ethical intent. The myth of the guardian serpent illustrates a profound understanding that true power and knowledge are inseparable from responsibility. Humans are reminded that every pursuit of wealth or wisdom carries consequences, and that patience and reverence are as valuable as the treasure itself. The imagery of these serpents is often as vivid as their role is symbolic. In Mesopotamian and Egyptian art, coiled serpents adorn thresholds and treasure boxes, their eyes inlaid with precious stones that seem to follow observers, creating a sense of quiet vigilance. Indian texts describe nagas with jewel-like scales, glimmering in cave light or temple lanterns, their movements slow, deliberate, and graceful. In African folklore, the serpent might have iridescent scales reflecting sunlight or moonlight, moving silently beneath sacred pools or caves. In each case, the physical depiction of the serpent reinforces its symbolic role: patient, watchful, and inseparable from the treasures it protects. Its beauty and stillness inspire awe, teaching that guardianship is a matter of presence, patience, and quiet power, rather than violence or intimidation. The serpent's role as a guardian also intersects with human ritual and daily practice. Across cultures, people would leave offerings, perform prayers, or engage in symbolic gestures to acknowledge the serpent's presence. In Egypt, priests would recite protective incantations and align ritual objects with coiled serpent carvings, acknowledging the guardian's role in preserving sacred knowledge. In India, pilgrims would enter cave sanctuaries with deliberate steps, mindful of the naga's watchful presence, ensuring that their movements reflected humility and devotion. In Africa, communities performed ceremonial dances, songs, and offerings to honor the serpent and ensure that sacred objects remained protected. Across time and place, these practices reinforce the understanding that respect, mindfulness, and ethical conduct are essential when interacting with knowledge, wealth, or sacred power. The lessons of these myths extend beyond treasure itself, touching on universal truths about human behavior, responsibility, and wisdom. The serpent's patience reflects the necessity of restraint and contemplation. Its vigilance reminds humans that actions have consequences, and its coiled form symbolizes the cyclical nature of learning, growth, and discovery. By guarding treasures without aggression, the serpent teaches that protection is an active, enduring practice, not an act of fear. In stories, seekers learn that rushing, arrogance, or greed obscure understanding, while calm, attentive, and respectful approaches reveal insight and access to the treasures of life. Across continents and centuries, the motif of the serpent guarding treasure reinforces the ethical framework surrounding the pursuit of knowledge and the stewardship of power. Even in modern interpretations, the myth of the treasure-guarding serpent continues to inspire. Writers, storytellers, and artists evoke the image of coiled guardians in caves, temple vaults, and hidden chambers, reminding audiences of the timeless lessons embedded in these tales. Children are taught that curiosity must be tempered with respect, that seeking without care may lead to loss, and that true treasure, whether material or intellectual, comes to those who cultivate patience, awareness, and humility. In this way, the myths serve not only as entertainment, but as enduring moral and spiritual guides, echoing the wisdom of generations who understood the delicate balance between desire, responsibility, and reverence. The symbolism of the serpent guarding treasures resonates with the natural world as well. Just as a lake serpent protects its waters, or a forest guardian watches over the life within its domain, the serpents of hidden chambers remind humans that the preservation of wealth, knowledge, and sacred objects requires vigilance, care, and respect. Their presence teaches that life's treasures, whether insight, wisdom, or material abundance, cannot be seized recklessly, but must be approached with mindfulness, patience, and ethical intention. In every story, the serpent embodies the continuity of protection, the quiet power of observation, and the enduring link between guardianship and reverence. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Europe, and Africa, the serpent as a keeper of treasure embodies universal truths, vigilance, patience, and ethical responsibility. It teaches that access to sacred or valuable things is earned, not demanded, and that wisdom is inseparable from moral awareness. Its quiet presence is both reassuring and instructive, reminding seekers that the most enduring treasures are protected by guardians whose vigilance is calm, steady, and eternal. The lessons of these myths are timeless. Respect, mindfulness, and patience are as valuable as any artifact, and the true treasures of life are revealed to those who cultivate reverence and inner readiness. And so, across the hidden chambers, deep caves, and sacred temples of human imagination, the serpent coils silently, ever watchful, ever patient, and ever wise. It guards its treasures without aggression, instructs without words, and ensures that knowledge, wisdom, and sacred objects are approached with respect and understanding. In its quiet vigilance, there is a profound lesson that patience, reverence, and mindfulness are the keys to accessing life's deepest rewards. The serpent, keeper of treasures, reminds us that the pursuit of wisdom and sacred wealth is a journey of awareness, humility, and enduring respect. And in this quiet guardianship, the serpent continues its eternal watch, a timeless symbol of vigilance, guidance, and the enduring power of reverence. In the quiet corners of human imagination, where myth and reality weave together like threads in a tapestry, there exists a recurring figure, the serpent. Unlike the fearsome snakes of cautionary tales, these serpents are guardians, protectors, and teachers. They coil silently around sacred relics, hidden treasures, and secret knowledge, not to harm, but to instruct. Their presence across cultures from Mesopotamia to India, Egypt, Africa, and Europe reminds humans that some treasures, whether material or spiritual, require patience, respect, and a measured heart. These serpents teach that the pursuit of wealth or wisdom is not simply a matter of desire, but of intention, reverence, and understanding. They are eternal observers, watching silently, guiding subtly, ensuring that the treasures of the world are safeguarded for those who approach with care. In Mesopotamia, one of the earliest civilizations of human history, serpents appear in myths guarding sacred knowledge within the towering ziggurats and hidden chambers of temples. The ziggurats themselves, monumental structures of brick and stone, were considered bridges between earth and heaven. Within their inner sanctums lay sacred texts, ritual objects, and relics of immense spiritual significance. Carvings of coiled serpents adorned staircases, walls, and threshold stones, their presence serving as a gentle, persistent reminder. The sacred is not to be approached carelessly. Stories tell of priests and pilgrims navigating these temples, guided by the watchful eyes of serpents. Those who approached with humility, patience, and reverence could sense subtle signs pointing them toward hidden wisdom. a reflection of sunlight off a coiled statue, a soft hiss in the chamber, or a faint movement of shadow that indicated the path to knowledge. But those driven by greed or arrogance often found the inner chambers impenetrable, their path blocked not by violence, but by the serpent's calm insistence that wisdom must be earned. In Egypt, serpents occupied a similarly profound role, entwined around sacred relics and protective talismans. The Ouroboros, a serpent consuming its own tail, became a symbol of eternity, cyclic time, and the perpetual guarding of divine treasures. Temples, tombs, and shrines frequently featured serpents carved around chests, altars, and sacred objects. They were not merely ornamental. They were reminders of the vigilance required to approach the divine responsibly. Priests understood that these treasures, be they amulets, scrolls, or ceremonial objects, represented more than material wealth. They were conduits of spiritual power, insight, and ritual authority. Legends recount that careless or impatient individuals, attempting to seize a relic without understanding, would find it hidden once more, obscured by the serpent's quiet influence. The guardian's patient presence instructed that the treasure was not merely to be possessed, but to be approached with mindfulness, respect, and moral awareness. In India, the Nagas, the semi-divine serpents, played a crucial role in guarding sacred knowledge and hidden treasures. These serpents often resided in mountain caves, temple vaults, or riverbanks, coiled around manuscripts, ritual objects, and esoteric relics. Stories recount pilgrims and seekers entering these sacred spaces, encountering the Nagas in their silent vigilance. Coiled serpent might block a narrow passage, its eyes gleaming in torchlight, but not in anger, only as a test of the seeker's patience, reverence, and inner calm. Those who rushed, acted with greed, or attempted to force their way found the passages mysteriously closed, the treasures hidden from view. Conversely, those who moved carefully, observed attentively, and reflected on their intentions often received subtle signs guiding them toward the objects of knowledge or devotion. In this mythology, the serpent teaches that spiritual and intellectual treasures are inseparable from ethical conduct and measured intention. In Mesoamerican civilizations, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl embodied both wisdom and the guardianship of sacred power. Temples dedicated to Quetzalcoatl often featured serpentine motifs coiled around staircases, altars, and sacred artifacts. The serpent symbolized vigilance and discernment, ensuring that only those who approached with respect and mindfulness could access the sacred spaces and their treasures. Priests who misused knowledge or relics for personal gain were met not with wrath, but with the subtle redirection of fate, illustrating that true understanding and spiritual growth come not from force or desire, but from alignment with the principles of reverence and patience. Stories describe Quetzalcoatl guiding worthy individuals through labyrinthine temples, allowing glimpses of knowledge or sacred relics only when they demonstrated calm, reflection, and moral clarity. European folklore offers countless tales of serpents guarding treasures in forests, caves, and lakes. From the hidden grottos of the Alps to the lochs of Scotland, these serpents are often depicted as patient, intelligent beings, invisible to the casual observer but deeply attuned to human behavior. Legends tell of seekers venturing into caves in search of gold, jewels, or ancient manuscripts, only to find that their success depended not on speed or force, but on respect, careful observation, and humility. A coiled serpent might appear as a shadow in the dim light, its scales glinting softly, subtly guiding the worthy or obstructing the impulsive. Sometimes the guardian's influence was indirect. A sudden shift in the wind, a ripple across an underground pool, or a faint glimmer of reflection in the rock that hinted at the treasure's presence. Through these subtle interventions, the serpent reinforced the principle that treasures, whether material or spiritual, demand patience, mindfulness, and reverence. African traditions offer similarly profound examples of serpents guarding treasures, often blending spiritual, communal, and ecological wisdom. In West Africa, serpentine deities inhabit sacred lakes, hidden caves, or forested groves, coiled around sacred objects, ritual implements, and manuscripts containing esoteric knowledge. The serpent's presence is a reminder that power and wisdom are inseparable from responsibility. Those approaching these treasures with care, humility, and patience might gain insight or receive guidance from the guardian, while those acting impulsively or greedily would find the treasure hidden, obscured, or rendered inaccessible. Communities would leave offerings, fruits, ceremonial cloths, or symbolic tokens to honor the serpent's vigilance, acknowledging that the treasure's preservation depends on the moral and spiritual integrity of those who seek it. Through these myths, the serpent embodies the timeless principle that access to sacred knowledge requires readiness, patience, and respect. Across all these cultures, the serpent as a guardian represents more than just a protector of physical treasures. Its vigilance extends to the ethical and spiritual dimensions of human behavior. The presence of the serpent in these stories is a lesson in mindfulness. The act of seeking itself becomes a test of character, a journey that teaches patience, observation, and ethical consideration. In every myth, the coiled guardian watches silently, enforcing boundaries not through fear or violence, but through subtle guidance, reflection, and gentle obstruction. The treasure, whether gold, knowledge, or sacred relic, cannot be claimed recklessly. It can only be revealed to those who approach with reverence, care, and readiness. The imagery of these guardians is as varied as the cultures that honor them. In Mesopotamian and Egyptian art, serpents are coiled around temple doors, treasure chests, or ritual objects, their eyes often inlaid with precious stones that seem to follow the observer. Indian texts describe nagas with jewel-like scales reflecting torchlight in dark caves, moving with deliberate, measured grace. In African folklore, serpents shimmer with iridescent colors beneath sacred pools or in forested hollows, their presence both beautiful and instructive. In European legends, shadowy serpents glide through caves or under the still waters of lochs, their vigilance subtle, their guidance indirect, yet profoundly impactful. Across these varied forms, one truth remains constant. The serpent embodies patience, observation, and enduring guardianship. The role of the serpent extends into human ritual and daily practice. Priests, shamans, and pilgrims would leave offerings, perform gestures of respect, or recite prayers acknowledging the serpent's vigilance. In Egypt, sacred relics were aligned with coiled serpent carvings to ensure divine protection and proper stewardship. In India, devotees navigated temple vaults with deliberate care, aware of the naga's watchful presence. African communities performed dances, songs, and offerings to honor the serpent, ensuring the continuity of spiritual and material harmony. These acts reinforce the understanding that the preservation of treasures, whether physical, intellectual, or spiritual, requires human cooperation, respect, and mindful engagement. The lessons of these myths transcend cultural boundaries. The serpent's patient vigilance models restraint, the importance of observation, and the subtle strength of enduring guardianship. It teaches that the pursuit of wealth or knowledge must be tempered by ethical intention, mindfulness, and reverence. The treasure itself is inseparable from the qualities required to access it: patience, respect, and moral awareness. Across centuries and continents, the stories of serpents guarding sacred relics remind humans that wisdom is not merely obtained, but cultivated, and that the true value of a treasure is intertwined with the character of the seeker. Even in contemporary imagination, the serpent as guardian of treasure continues to inspire. Artists, writers, and storytellers evoke coiled serpents in caves, temples, and hidden chambers to illustrate the enduring lesson that patience, respect, and mindfulness are essential for attaining life's greatest rewards. Children learn that curiosity must be balanced with care, that the impulsive or greedy may fail, and that the most profound treasures are revealed only to those prepared in heart, mind, intention. The myths serve not only as entertainment, but as moral and spiritual guides, transmitting timeless principles across generations. The symbolism of these serpents resonates with the natural world as well. Just as a lake serpent protects the waters it inhabits, or a forest guardian maintains the balance of life within the trees, the treasure-guarding serpent models vigilance, care, and ethical stewardship. Its quiet presence teaches humans that treasures, whether insight, wisdom, or material wealth, cannot be seized recklessly. They require reflection, patience, and ethical awareness. In stories, seekers learn that the true reward is not only the treasure itself, but the discipline, reverence, and mindfulness cultivated along the journey to find it. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Europe, and Africa, the serpent as a guardian embodies universal truths: patience, vigilance, ethical responsibility, and reverence for the sacred. Its silent presence ensures that treasures are approached with care, guiding seekers toward insight, understanding, and respect. The serpent teaches that wisdom and sacred power are inseparable from responsibility, and that guardianship is not an act of aggression, but a measured, enduring practice. The mythological serpent reminds humans that the pursuit of life's treasures, whether material, intellectual, or spiritual, requires preparation, mindfulness, and an open, humble heart. In the quiet chambers of imagination, the serpent coils around hidden relics, manuscripts, and treasures, ever watchful, ever patient, and ever wise. It is not a creature of fear, but a teacher, guiding those who seek with respect and humility. The serpent enforces boundaries gently, reminding humans that wisdom, insight, and sacred treasures cannot be rushed or demanded. Its guardianship is calm, deliberate, and eternal, a testament to the enduring principle that patience and reverence are the true keys to unlocking the world's hidden wonders. Across continents and cultures, the serpent remains a timeless symbol of vigilance, guidance, and ethical guardianship, quietly ensuring that sacred treasures are approached with intention, respect, and the readiness to understand their profound significance. And so, across the temples, caves, lakes, and hidden chambers of human imagination, the serpent continues its silent vigil. It coils patiently around relics and manuscripts, treasures of wisdom and knowledge, waiting for those who approach with care. Its lessons are subtle yet enduring, that the pursuit of treasure, whether of the material, intellectual, or spiritual kind, requires patience, mindfulness, and ethical intention. The serpent's eternal presence reminds us that vigilance and guardianship need not be harsh or aggressive. They are most profound when quiet, enduring, and thoughtful. In this timeless guardianship, the serpent teaches that respect, patience, and reverence are treasures in themselves, and that the world's deepest wisdom is revealed only to those who approach with a prepared heart and a measured step. In the quiet spaces of the natural world, humans have always found meaning in the subtle rhythms of life. Among the creatures that inhabit the earth, the serpent stands out for its silent, graceful movements and its mysterious ways. Observers of nature notice that snakes shed their skin, sloughing off the old to reveal a new, gleaming form beneath. This act, so simple yet profound, became a symbol across cultures of renewal, rebirth, and the eternal cycles of life. The serpent's shedding of skin was not a violent transformation, but a gentle, patient process embodying the calm, unhurried rhythm of nature itself. In the myths, rituals, and spiritual teachings of ancient cultures, this phenomenon was elevated into a profound symbol. The snake is a living representation of life's continuity, the endless turning of seasons, of human experiences, and the ever-present possibility of renewal and transformation. In ancient Egypt, snakes were closely associated with cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The uraeus, a stylized upright cobra often depicted on the crowns of pharaohs, represented sovereignty, divine authority, and protection, but also transformation and renewal. The cobra's ability to shed its skin and emerge refreshed became a metaphor for the cyclical nature of life and the soul's journey through time. In Egyptian mythology, the serpent appeared in funerary texts and temple carvings as a guardian of life's passage, standing at thresholds where life, death, and regeneration intersected. The shedding of skin symbolized more than just physical renewal. Represented the eternal potential to shed old habits, old fears, and old limitations, emerging with clarity, vitality, and wisdom. Priests and scribes saw in the snake a lesson in patience, the understanding that transformation is gradual, and that the cycles of existence are continuous, interconnected, and sacred. In India, the snake or naga is revered not only as a protector of water and sacred spaces, but also as a symbol of transformation and cosmic cycles. Stories describe nagas shedding their skin in silent lakes and riverbanks, reappearing in a renewed form that embodies both physical and spiritual regeneration. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, the serpent's shedding became a symbol of life's impermanence and the possibility of rebirth. Philosophers and mystics often meditated on the snake, reflecting on the continuity of the soul, the cycles of karma, and the eternal potential for inner renewal. 2. Temples often depict coiled nagas intertwined around pillars, staircases, or sacred texts. Their sinuous forms a visual reminder that life is a constant process of shedding, renewal, and growth. The patience of the snake, quietly transforming itself beneath the sun or water, became a model for humans seeking calm, clarity, and the ability to adapt gracefully to the cycles of existence. In Mesoamerica, serpents were closely associated with fertility, the earth, and the cyclical rhythms of agriculture. The feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, symbolized both life and renewal. Artists and priests depicted him with vibrant scales, coiled in dynamic patterns that suggested movement, shedding, and transformation. The snake's ability to discard its old skin and emerge renewed mirrored the cycles of planting and harvest, of death and regrowth, and of the sun's daily journey across the sky. In rituals, Quetzalcoatl's shedding was a metaphor for the renewal of life, the promise that every ending contained within it the seed of a new beginning. Farmers, shamans, and community leaders would invoke the serpent during festivals, celebrating the eternal rhythm of birth, growth, decay, and regeneration, teaching that calm acceptance of these cycles was essential for harmony with the natural world. Greek mythology also embraced the snake as a symbol of regeneration and eternal calm. The Ouroboros, a serpent eating its own tail, became one of the most enduring symbols of cyclical existence, representing infinity, renewal, and the unity of beginnings and endings. Philosophers, alchemists, and mystics reflected on the Ouroboros as a visual metaphor for life itself, the eternal return, the necessity of shedding what is old to embrace what is new, and the continuity of energy in all forms. In healing temples, the serpent often appeared coiled around staffs or vessels, its image reminding visitors and seekers that restoration, renewal, and balance are processes, not instantaneous events. The shedding of skin was a reminder that transformation requires patience, quiet reflection, and trust in the rhythms of nature. The snake's calm presence symbolized the acceptance of change, the beauty of impermanence, and the enduring cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In African traditions, the serpent is similarly linked with the cycles of life and renewal. Among the Yoruba, the python is revered as a creature of wisdom, longevity, and regeneration. Legends tell of snakes that shed their skin along riverbanks or beneath sacred trees, emerging renewed, stronger, and imbued with the knowledge of the natural world. These acts of transformation were seen as symbols for humans, teaching that personal growth and spiritual renewal require patience, introspection, and respect for life's rhythms. The serpent, moving silently and shedding periodically, became a model for calm endurance, illustrating that growth is often invisible, gradual, and profound. Across Africa, the shedding of skin was celebrated in rituals, dances, and storytelling, emphasizing the interconnectedness of human life, nature, and the cycles that sustain existence. Japanese mythology and folklore also highlight the serpent's role as a symbol of transformation. The white serpent, a creature often associated with purity, wisdom, and hidden knowledge, was believed to shed its skin in rivers or sacred ponds. Observers who witnessed or even imagined this process understood it as a metaphor for renewal, not only of the physical form, but of the soul, the mind, and the spirit. Monks, poets, and villagers reflected on the serpent's calm patience, meditating on its steady, unhurried transformation as a guide for personal and spiritual growth. The shedding of skin symbolized letting go of attachments, fears, or outdated ways of being, and embracing the fresh, renewed potential that life offers with each cycle. The snake's quiet rhythm of renewal encouraged humans to observe, reflect, and align themselves with the natural cycles that govern both the material and spiritual worlds. Even in Celtic and Northern European traditions, the serpent's renewal is celebrated as a symbol of life's continuity. The shedding of skin was interpreted as a metaphor for transformation, healing, and the passage of time. Stories recount snakes emerging from under rocks or beneath the shade of sacred trees, their scales glinting like newly polished metal, embodying resilience, patience, and the promise of renewal. Druids and shamans viewed the serpent as a teacher, demonstrating that life's challenges and endings are not to be feared, but embraced as part of the ongoing cycle of existence. The act of shedding becomes a meditation on impermanence, the acceptance of change, and the enduring possibility of growth, echoing across rituals, art, and oral traditions. Across cultures, the symbolic power of the shedding snake extends into philosophical reflection. The serpent's calm, deliberate renewal offers humans a model for personal transformation. The shedding of skin is a patient act, reminding observers that change occurs gradually, often unseen, until the transformation is complete. It teaches that renewal is not instantaneous, but emerges from cycles, reflection, and adaptation. Ancient myths universally celebrate this process, elevating the snake from a simple creature to a profound emblem of life's rhythms, the flow of energy, and the eternal potential for rebirth. The snake embodies the principle that endings contain beginnings, decay precedes growth, and stillness precedes movement, offering a vision of life that is patient, continuous, and interconnected. The metaphor of renewal associated with snakes also extends into human psychology and spirituality. Observing a snake shedding its skin, ancient peoples recognized parallels in human life. Letting go of outdated beliefs, releasing emotional burdens, and embracing new phases of growth. This insight became embedded in rituals, meditative practices, and symbolic art. In Egyptian tombs, Greek manuscripts, Indian temples, African shrines, and Japanese folktales, the shedding snake illustrates the possibility of personal rebirth, guiding humans toward reflection, balance, and acceptance. The calm patience of the serpent encourages humans to trust the process of transformation, to understand that growth often requires invisibility, silence, and gradual progression. The natural imagery surrounding snakes reinforces this symbolism. In deserts, forests, rivers, and mountains, the act of shedding is a quiet, almost invisible process, unnoticed by many but profoundly meaningful to those who observe. Sunlight glinting off a newly exposed scale, the subtle movement of a coiled body, and the rhythmic motion of a serpent's glide all convey the serenity and inevitability of renewal. Ancient peoples translated these observations into myths and symbols, emphasizing the lesson that transformation is both natural and sacred, a continuous process woven into the fabric of existence itself. Through these images, the serpent teaches that calm patience, observation, and respect for cycles are essential in human life. Throughout history, serpents have also symbolized the broader cycles of nature. Their shedding mirrors the seasons, the growth of crops, the waxing and waning of the moon, and the cycles of birth and death in human communities. By observing the snake, ancient peoples understood the interconnectedness of all life, that growth requires letting go, that endings are preludes to beginnings, and that stillness and calm observation are necessary for understanding the rhythms that sustain existence. The shedding of skin becomes both literal and metaphorical, a lesson in adaptation, renewal, and harmony with the world. It is a reminder that life, like the serpent, is continuous, patient, and cyclical, and that embracing these cycles leads to serenity, insight, and enduring wisdom. Even in contemporary culture, the image of the shedding snake continues to inspire. Artists, writers, and spiritual teachers evoke the serpent to symbolize personal transformation, renewal, and resilience. Meditation practices encourage reflection on the cycles of life, inspired by the patience and grace of the snake. Its quiet vigilance, its deliberate shedding, and its unhurried movement offer a model for navigating life's challenges and embracing opportunities for growth. Across millennia, the shedding snake has remained a universal emblem of patience, renewal, and eternal calm, guiding humans to embrace transformation as a natural, ongoing, and sacred process. Across civilizations, the symbolism of renewal associated with snakes converges into a universal lesson that life is a series of cycles, and that transformation is an inherent, ongoing process. The shedding of skin is a tangible, visible expression of this principle, reminding humans that growth and renewal are possible at any moment. By observing the snake, ancient peoples understood that life, like the serpent, requires patience, humility, and attentiveness. The quiet, deliberate act of shedding illustrates that change is natural, renewal is inevitable, and calm acceptance of life's rhythms leads to insight, wisdom, and spiritual balance. And so, across Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Greece, Africa, and Japan, the snake remains a symbol of life's eternal cycles. Its shedding of skin embodies the principles of rebirth, renewal, and calm patience. In myths, rituals, and spiritual teachings, the snake instructs humans to embrace change, release the old, and trust in the ongoing rhythm of existence. Its presence is silent yet profound, a living emblem of the interconnectedness of all life, the inevitability of cycles, and the enduring possibility of transformation. The snake's renewal is a meditation in motion, a symbol of the quiet, patient grace with which life unfolds, and a reminder that endings are never final, but the threshold to new beginnings. In the quiet corners of the natural world, humans have long looked for signs of life's rhythms, for patterns that reveal the cycles of growth, decay, and renewal. Among all creatures, the serpent stands out for its subtle movements and mysterious ways. Observers notice that snakes periodically shed their skin, sloughing off the old and emerging with a renewed, gleaming form beneath. This act, silent yet profound, became a symbol across cultures of life cycles, rebirth, and the enduring potential for renewal. The snake, in shedding its skin, teaches patience, persistence, and the gentle passage of time. Its transformation is neither sudden nor violent. It is deliberate, calm, and continuous, embodying the quiet rhythm of the natural world and the eternal unfolding of life itself. In ancient Egypt, the serpent's symbolism of renewal is deeply rooted in mythology, art, and spiritual practice. The uraeus, the upright cobra, often depicted on pharaohs' crowns, represented not only protection and sovereignty, but also the cyclical nature of existence. In temple carvings and funerary texts, snakes appear as guardians of life, death, and rebirth, often coiled around sacred symbols or threshold stones marking transitions between earthly and divine realm. The shedding of a serpent's skin became a metaphor for spiritual renewal. The old self discarded, the soul refreshed, the mind cleared. Priests meditating in temple chambers would contemplate the snake, observing its silent patience and reflecting on their own cycles of growth and decay. The snake's calm, measured shedding mirrored the eternal cycle of the Nile's floods, the planting and harvesting of crops, and the unending dance of life and death across the desert lands. In the temples of India, the Naga, semi-divine serpents, embody both protection and the power of transformation. Stories tell of Nagas shedding their skin along riverbanks or beneath sacred groves, emerging renewed, luminous, and imbued with spiritual wisdom. These acts became symbols of rebirth, demonstrating the constant potential for personal and spiritual renewal. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, the serpent shedding mirrors the cycles of karma and reincarnation, teaching that life is an ongoing process of renewal. Pilgrims entering temples where nagas were revered often meditated on the snakes, reflecting on their own capacity to release old habits, fears, and attachments, embracing instead the clarity, vitality, and potential for growth that comes with transformation. In this way, the snake serves as both guardian and teacher, guiding humans toward patience, mindfulness, and self-renewal. In Mesoamerican cultures, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl was a living symbol of cycles, renewal, and eternal growth. Depicted in intricate carvings, murals, and temple sculptures, Quetzalcoatl's sinuous body often coiled in dynamic, flowing patterns, symbolizing the ongoing movement of life and the universe. The shedding of skin became a metaphor for the cycles of agriculture, the planting of seeds, the growth of crops, their eventual harvest, and the preparation of the soil for the next season. Rituals dedicated to Quetzalcoatl celebrated not only fertility and abundance, but the perpetual renewal inherent in life's rhythms. Farmers, priests, and community leaders invoked the serpent's blessing to ensure harmony with the natural world, reflecting on the patience and perseverance required to align human life with these cycles. The snake's shedding taught that endings are merely beginnings, and that every stage of life contains within it the potential for rebirth. Greek mythology also embraced the serpent as a symbol of renewal, immortality, and eternal calm. The Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, became one of the most enduring symbols of the infinite cycle, representing the unity of beginnings and endings, the continuity of life, and the necessity of constant transformation. Philosophers, alchemists, and mystics often meditated on this image, contemplating the impermanence of material life and the enduring nature of energy and spirit. In healing sanctuaries, the serpent's image appeared coiled around staffs, bowls, and vessels, reminding visitors that regeneration and restoration are processes, not instantaneous events. The shedding of skin symbolized a patient, deliberate approach to transformation, letting go of the old to embrace the new, understanding that calm observation and acceptance are essential for growth. The serpent's graceful movements and quiet endurance became a metaphor for life itself, embodying resilience, patience, and the eternal possibility of renewal. In African traditions, serpents carry similar symbolic weight, often associated with longevity, wisdom, and cycles of life. Among the Yoruba and other West African peoples, the python is venerated for its quiet endurance and capacity for renewal. Tales describe the serpent shedding its skin along riverbanks or beneath sacred trees, emerging transformed, imbued with a knowledge of the natural world, and prepared to continue its silent guardianship. These acts of renewal became models for human growth, illustrating that personal transformation requires patience, reflection, and alignment with life's cycles. Rituals, dances, and storytelling often celebrated the shedding serpent, reinforcing the idea that humans, like snakes, must embrace change, release the old, and cultivate serenity to navigate life's rhythms with wisdom. In Japan, the symbolism of renewal is particularly visible in the folklore of the white serpent. This creature, often associated with wisdom, purity, and hidden knowledge, was believed to shed its skin in serene rivers and sacred ponds. Witnessing or contemplating this act became a meditative practice, encouraging reflection on impermanence, personal growth, and spiritual clarity. The shedding process symbolizes letting go of attachments, fears, and past limitations, and embracing the fresh potential of life. Monks, poets, and villagers alike observed the snake's calm movements, drawing inspiration for patience, introspection, and gentle adaptation. The white serpent's serene renewal embodies the quiet grace of life cycles, illustrating that transformation is not hurried but unfolds naturally, silently, and inevitably. Even in Celtic and Northern European traditions, snakes symbolize cycles and regeneration. Legends tell of serpents emerging from under rocks, trees, or within shaded groves, their scales glinting in sunlight like freshly polished metal. These creatures embodied patience, resilience, and renewal, teaching that endings were not permanent, and that growth arises naturally from cycles of rest, reflection, and change. Druids and shamans often interpreted the shedding of skin as a model for human transformation, a reminder to release what no longer serves, to embrace change calmly, and to trust in the slow, steady rhythms of life. Through the serpent, people learn to align themselves with nature's cycles, cultivating serenity, understanding, and wisdom along the way. Across all cultures, the serpent's shedding of skin becomes a rich metaphor for spiritual, psychological, and physical renewal. The process itself is patient and deliberate, mirroring the gradual unfolding of life, the steady progress of learning, and the continuous cycles of growth and decay. Ancient peoples recognized the parallels between the snake's transformation and human experience, letting go of outdated beliefs, releasing emotional burdens, embracing new phases of life, and trusting in the continuity of existence. The snake teaches that transformation is often visible at first, subtle and gradual, yet profound in its effects. Its calm, measured shedding embodies the enduring principle that patience, observation, and inner readiness are essential for meaningful change. The symbolism of renewal extends into rituals, art, and daily life. In Egypt, temples depicted snakes coiled around sacred relics, emphasizing continuity and regeneration. In India, nagas intertwined with pillars, staircases, and sacred texts symbolize spiritual rebirth. In Mesoamerica, feathered serpents represented cycles of life and seasonal renewal. In Africa, serpents shed their skin along riverbanks and beneath sacred trees, teaching communities about resilience and patient transformation. In Japan, white serpents inspired meditation on impermanence and self-renewal. Across continents, the shedding snake remained a universal emblem of continuity, guiding humans to embrace cycles with calm, grace, and awareness. The act of shedding also mirrors natural cycles, reinforcing the serpent as a symbol of life's rhythm. Seasons turn, rivers flow, crops grow and are harvested, and the sun rises and sets, all mirrored in the quiet, patient transformation of the snake. Its emergence from the old skin is a visual affirmation of continuity, renewal, and of the interconnectedness of all life. Observers understood that transformation, whether personal or ecological, requires patience, timing, and respect for natural rhythms. The serpent's calm and measured renewal teaches that endings are never final, but transitions leading to new growth, insight, and vitality. Throughout human history, the shedding snake has also inspired philosophical and spiritual reflection, Its renewal embodies the principles of impermanence, adaptability, and eternal calm. By watching the snake, ancient peoples learned the value of letting go, of releasing what is worn or outdated, and of embracing the fresh potential inherent in every cycle. Rituals, storytelling, meditation, and art all convey this wisdom, illustrating that life's challenges and endings are not obstacles, but opportunities for transformation. The serpent's calm, continuous renewal embodies patience, serenity, and the enduring flow of life, encouraging humans to navigate existence with mindfulness and grace. Even in modern times, the symbolic shedding of snakes continues to inspire art, literature, and spiritual practice. Meditative reflections on the snake's calm, patient transformation serve as metaphors for human personal growth, resilience, and renewal. Its slow, deliberate shedding is a reminder that meaningful transformation is rarely instantaneous. It emerges through observation, reflection, and quiet engagement with life's rhythms. Across cultures and centuries, the snake remains a powerful emblem of renewal, patience, and eternal calm, demonstrating that the cycles of life, death, and rebirth are continuous, natural, and sacred. Across Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Greece, Africa, and Japan, the shedding snake symbolizes a universal truth. Life is a series of cycles, and transformation is an ongoing, inevitable process. Its calm, deliberate renewal teaches humans to release what is no longer needed, to embrace the new with patience and serenity, and to trust in the natural rhythm of existence. The serpent embodies the continuity of life, the quiet passage of time, and the enduring potential for personal and spiritual growth. In shedding its skin, the snake reflects the eternal cycles of birth, growth, decay, and regeneration, offering a living model for human life and consciousness. The symbolism of renewal associated with snakes is profound and multi-layered. Each shedding of skin represents the discarding of the old, the embrace of the new, and the affirmation that life continues endlessly, patiently, and calmly. Across myths, rituals, and teachings, the snake reminds humans that growth and transformation are natural, ongoing, and sacred. Its serene, deliberate renewal offers a model for navigating life's challenges, cultivating patience, and finding wisdom in change. In every culture, the shedding snake embodies the beauty, resilience, and quiet power of life's cycles. In these cultures, the serpent's presence in everyday life emphasized continuity between the spiritual and the practical, teaching that the sacred is not separate from the ordinary, but is instead woven into the patterns of human existence. From marketplaces to homes, the quiet vigilance of the serpent served as a reminder of harmony, balance, and respect for unseen forces. Greek and Roman households similarly incorporated serpents into daily life, blending protection, symbolism, and aesthetic beauty. The snake frequently appeared in frescoes, mosaics, and household carvings, coiled around doorways, furniture, and domestic altars. In Greco-Roman medicine and healing practices, snakes symbolized rejuvenation and the life force, making their depictions on jars, vessels, and tools both practical and protective. Jewelry, rings, and hairpins shaped like coiled serpents conveyed status while also functioning as amulets, invoking the serpent's wisdom, vigilance, and regenerative power. Even mundane objects, from cups to storage chests, often featured intricate serpentine designs, silently reminding the household of the ongoing cycles of life, the protective nature of spiritual guardianship, and the connection between ethical conduct and personal well-being. In African traditions, snakes have long been integrated into everyday objects as symbols of protection, wisdom, and continuity. Among the Yoruba and Dahomey peoples, representations of serpents appear on carved furniture, ritual tools, jewelry, and household shrines. The python, revered for its longevity and patience, served as a silent guide in the home, reminding inhabitants of moral responsibility, awareness of natural cycles, and respect for spiritual forces. Jewelry featuring coiled snakes, often in gold or bronze, offered both aesthetic beauty and protective power, while carved representations on doors, baskets, and cooking utensils reinforced the notion that the sacred and the ordinary are inseparable. Even children's toys or decorative motifs contain serpent imagery, subtly instilling a sense of vigilance, patience, and ethical reflection from an early age. In Japan, the serpent also occupied a quiet, symbolic role in daily life. White serpents, symbols of purity and wisdom, were represented in carvings on household items, lacquerware, textiles, and jewelry. They were believed to bring good fortune, protect the family, and offer guidance through life's ordinary challenges. A small carved snake on a drawer, a coiled pattern on a tea ceremony bowl, or an embroidered serpent on a kimono acted as a constant reminder of vigilance, renewal, and the intertwining of the mundane with the mystical. Even in quiet domestic routines, the snake's presence encouraged calmness, reflection, and awareness, blending aesthetic beauty with symbolic significance. Across these cultures, one striking feature is how the serpent was never simply decorative. It was functional in its spiritual influence. Jewelry adorned with snakes was believed to protect against harm, misfortune, or illness. Carvings on utensils, furniture, or doors were intended to guard homes and families, subtly influencing behavior, fostering mindfulness, and reminding inhabitants of the cycles of life, moral responsibility, and spiritual vigilance. The snake's quiet presence in everyday objects encouraged reflection on the interconnectedness of life, reminding people that even mundane tasks are part of a broader, sacred pattern. In markets, artisans, and workshops, snakes were also represented in tools and coins, subtly infusing commerce with protection and ethical oversight. Traders and craftsmen often carried small snake-shaped amulets or engraved coiled serpents into their wares, ensuring the flow of honest exchange and prosperity. These symbolic presences reminded people that ethical behavior, respect for natural forces, and mindfulness were essential for harmonious life. The snake, quietly integrated into ordinary life, acted as a moral compass, a spiritual observer, and a protective guardian all at once. The presence of snakes in daily life also reinforced a sense of continuity and renewal. Much like their symbolic shedding of skin, snakes in jewelry, carvings, and household objects reminded humans of transformation and the cyclical nature of existence. A ring shaped like a coiled serpent, a carved snake on a doorway, or a decorative motif on a cup could evoke the quiet rhythm of life, cycles of growth and decay, and the potential for renewal inherent in each day. These subtle symbols encouraged humans to live with awareness, patience, and reverence, reminding them that ordinary life is never separate from the sacred, but a canvas upon which ethical, spiritual, and natural principles play out continuously. Even children encountered snakes in daily life, often without fear, through toys, small carvings, or decorative objects, embedding early awareness of the serpent's protective and symbolic role. By interacting with these forms, young minds learned the values of vigilance, patience, and ethical conduct. In schools, homes, and communal spaces, the serpent silently conveyed lessons about the cycles of life, the interconnection of human and natural worlds, and the subtle power of attentive presence. Through repetition and integration into daily life, the snake symbolism became ingrained in culture, not as an abstract myth, but as a living guide quietly shaping behavior, awareness, and spiritual understanding. Across continents, the integration of serpents into daily life highlights a universal human desire to bridge the mystical and the mundane. The snake's quiet vigilance transforms ordinary objects into conduits of protection, wisdom, and renewal. Whether engraved on a cooking pot in Egypt, coiled in a bracelet in India, embroidered on textiles in Japan, or carved into furniture in Africa, snakes serve as reminders that life's rhythms, moral principles, and spiritual truths permeate even the most routine aspects of human existence. Their constant presence fosters mindfulness, respect, and harmony, blending the sacred seamlessly into the patterns of ordinary living. The use of snakes in daily life also illustrates the subtle power of symbols. A coiled snake on a household object can encourage reflection on life cycles, patience, and vigilance without overt instruction. The presence of the serpent in mundane activities reminds humans that the sacred is woven into every gesture, every decision, and every interaction. Cooking, cleaning, crafting, trading, and resting are all framed within a symbolic context, subtly guided by the protective, watchful energy of the snake. In this way, the serpent becomes an intimate, silent companion in daily life, integrating spiritual lessons with routine practice. Across centuries, as civilizations evolved, the role of serpents in daily life persisted, Artisans continued to produce jewelry, carvings, and household items bearing snake motifs. Families maintained shrines and placed protective amulets in homes. Markets sold goods adorned with serpentine designs. Children grew up surrounded by these symbols, learning the quiet wisdom of vigilance, patience, and renewal. Even as religious practices and spiritual beliefs evolved, the snake's presence in the home, on personal items, and in ordinary routines continued to remind people of the seamless blend between mystical forces and the mundane rhythm of life. The snake's quiet integration into daily life also highlights a philosophical perspective that the extraordinary is present in the ordinary. By observing the symbolism of snakes in everyday objects, humans were reminded that protection, renewal, and wisdom are not only found in sacred spaces or extraordinary events, but in every task, object, and relationship. The snake's vigilant, coiled form becomes a constant teacher, guiding behavior, fostering ethical reflection, and encouraging awareness of the unseen forces that shape life. Its subtle presence transforms routine into ritual, mundane actions into mindful practice, and ordinary spaces into sanctuaries of reflection and protection. In households, markets, and workshops across cultures, the snake silently watched over people, blending the mystical with the mundane. Jewelry adorned wrists, fingers, and necks. Carvings decorated doors, furniture, and utensils. Symbolic motifs appeared on textiles, pottery, and tools. In every object, the serpent's presence conveyed protection, renewal, vigilance, and connection to the cycles of life. By integrating these symbols into daily practice, humans learn to navigate life with mindfulness, respect, and calm awareness, carrying the serpent's quiet wisdom into every aspect of existence. Across Egypt, India, Mesoamerica, Greece, Africa, and Japan, serpents quietly inhabited the spaces of daily life, teaching patience, vigilance, and renewal. Their presence in jewelry, carvings, household items, and utensils transformed the ordinary into the sacred, ensuring that protective, ethical, and spiritual principles were always close at hand. The serpent's subtle influence reminds humans that life is continuous, interconnected, and infused with unseen wisdom, that every act can reflect harmony, and that the ordinary is inseparable from the mystical. Through these silent companions, humans carried with them the quiet watchfulness, enduring presence, and timeless lessons of the serpent, blending the magic of myth with the rhythms of everyday life. Throughout human history, serpents have slithered quietly into daily life, their presence often subtle, yet profound. They were not merely creatures of fear or fascination in stories and myths. They were companions, guardians, and symbols woven into the very fabric of ordinary existence. From the moment a child learned to dress with care, to the preparation of a family meal, to the crafting of tools or jewelry, snakes appeared as silent witnesses and protectors. They were symbols that connected the mundane with the mystical, reminding humans that the world is alive with unseen forces and quiet wisdom. In every household, workshop, and marketplace, serpents left their mark. Their images carved, painted, or engraved onto objects, subtly guiding behavior, fostering mindfulness, and nurturing a sense of continuity between the human and spiritual realms. In ancient Egypt, the integration of serpents into daily life was both artistic and protective. Coiled cobras adorned jewelry, rings, bracelets, and necklaces, worn by royalty and common citizens alike. These objects were not merely decorative, they carried protective power, invoking the vigilance of the serpent to guard against misfortune, illness, and malevolent spirits. The urious cobra, often seen on the crowns of pharaohs, symbolized sovereignty and divine authority, but smaller, more personal representations of the cobra found their way into modest homes. Wooden chests, pottery, and even doorways were carved with snake motifs, signaling boundaries and safeguarding the domestic space. Each use of serpentine imagery was a quiet reminder that life cycles, moral conduct, and spiritual oversight, even in the most ordinary of daily routines. In India, serpents or nagas were integrated deeply into domestic and artistic life. They appeared on ritual vessels, household doors, furniture, and personal adornments. Bracelets shaped like coiled snakes, necklaces with jewel-encrusted heads, and rings engraved with sinuous forms became common talismans, believed to bring protection, prosperity, and spiritual awareness. Carvings of nagas on household tools and containers reflected both reverence and practicality, ensuring that ordinary tasks were imbued with sacred significance. Families engaged with these symbols daily, as even routine activities such as drawing water, grinding grains, or cooking were accompanied by the serene presence of the serpent. The naga's patient and watchful symbolism encouraged reflection, mindfulness, and alignment with life's rhythms. In Mesoamerican societies, serpents held dual roles of divine symbolism and domestic presence. Feathered serpents like Quetzalcoatl were revered in temples, but they also appeared in homes, markets, and artisans' workshops. Pottery, textiles, bowls, and ceremonial objects frequently bore coiled serpent designs, merging utility with sacred meaning. Jewelry, including rings and necklaces shaped like coiled serpents, conveyed protection, good fortune, and a connection to the divine. In everyday life, these objects served as constant reminders of vigilance, ethical conduct, and alignment with natural and spiritual cycles. Farmers, artisans, and merchants all encountered these symbols in routine tasks, grounding their lives in a web of continuity and sacred protection. Greek and Roman civilizations similarly integrated serpents into everyday life with both aesthetic and functional purposes. Snakes appeared in mosaics, frescoes, furniture, and household shrines, often coiled around doorways, staircases, or vessels. The serpent symbolized healing, rejuvenation, and the flow of life energy. Rings, hairpins, and necklaces shaped like coiled snakes functioned as both adornments and protective amulets, invoking wisdom, vigilance, and spiritual oversight. Even mundane items such as cups, jars, and storage chests bore serpentine designs, silently conveying messages about the cycles of life, moral responsibility, and the constant presence of guardianship. The quiet vigilance of these domestic serpents encouraged ethical reflection, mindfulness, and harmony within the household. African traditions also reflect the integration of serpents into daily life as guardians and symbols of continuity. Among the Yoruba, Dahomey, and other West African peoples, representations of pythons appeared on carved furniture, ritual implements, jewelry, and household shrines. Pythons were revered for their longevity, wisdom, and regenerative capacity. By incorporating their forms into daily objects, humans were reminded to act with care, respect natural cycles, and maintain ethical conduct. Jewelry featuring coiled serpents provided both protection and aesthetic beauty, while carvings on doors, baskets, and cooking tools reinforced the idea that the sacred and mundane coexist. Even decorative motifs on clothing, children's toys, or communal spaces carried these lessons, subtly teaching mindfulness, patience, and reverence. In Japan, the white serpent, a symbol of purity, wisdom, and guidance, appeared on household items, lacquerware, textiles, and jewelry. These representations were believed to bring good fortune, protect families, and encourage thoughtful living. Carved snake on a tea ceremony bowl, a coiled pattern embroidered onto a kimono, or a small figurine on a shelf served as reminders of vigilance, renewal, and calm reflection. Even as people engaged in ordinary domestic routines, the symbolic presence of the snake encouraged awareness, mindfulness, and respect for life's rhythms. By integrating serpentine symbols into daily practice, Japanese households seamlessly wove together the spiritual and practical aspects of life. In addition to ornamentation, snakes in daily life were often functional guides. In marketplaces and workshops, snake motifs on coins, weights, or measuring tools symbolized ethical conduct, fairness, and integrity. Traders, craftsmen, and merchants believed that these representations offered protection against dishonesty, misfortune, or imbalance in transactions. Household tools, like knives, bowls, and cooking implements, engraved with serpentine patterns carried both aesthetic and symbolic significance, transforming ordinary labor into an act imbued with sacred oversight. Even the repetition of patterns in weaving, pottery, or embroidery reflected the careful watchfulness of the serpent, bridging spiritual principles with practical routine. Across continents, the presence of snakes in domestic life reinforced continuity and renewal. Just as snakes periodically shed their skin, the daily integration of serpentine symbols reminded humans to release old habits, remain vigilant, and embrace cycles of growth and transformation. A ring shaped like a coiled snake, a carved motif on a storage chest, or a decorative pattern on pottery, all encouraged reflection on ethical behavior, patience, and the interconnectedness of human and spiritual life. These subtle presences transformed the mundane into an arena for mindful practice, teaching that protection, wisdom, and renewal are not limited to sacred temples or extraordinary events, but flow through ordinary, daily life. Children, too, encountered serpents from an early age through jewelry, toys, small carvings, or decorative motifs. These representations taught vigilance, patience, and ethical awareness subtly and naturally. As children played or participated in daily chores, the serpent's quiet presence instilled lessons about responsibility, mindfulness, and respect for natural and spiritual forces. In this way, the integration of serpents into everyday objects nurtured both ethical and spiritual development, creating a culture in which the mystical was interwoven with the practical. Across cultures, serpents in daily life illustrate the bridging of the sacred and the mundane. In Egypt, jewelry and household carvings provided protection and moral guidance. In India, nagas on ritual vessels and domestic objects encouraged mindfulness and spiritual reflection. In Mesoamerica, feathered serpents on pottery and textiles reminded humans of divine vigilance. In Africa, python motifs on furniture and tools reinforced ethical conduct. In Japan, white serpents on household items encouraged serenity, renewal, and awareness. The consistent integration of serpents into everyday life across civilizations underscores a universal human understanding that protection, wisdom, and the mystical are inseparable from ordinary experience. The symbolic power of serpents extended beyond protection and guidance into the aesthetic and philosophical. Each coiled pattern, engraved motif, and carved figure acted as a constant teacher. Snakes reminded humans that life is continuous, ethical conduct is essential, and vigilance is necessary in all endeavors. They connected routine activities with larger cycles of life, morality, and spiritual oversight. Cooking, crafting, cleaning, trading, and resting, all mundane tasks, were subtly elevated through the presence of the serpent, transforming everyday living into a practice infused with reflection, mindfulness, and protection. Even as civilizations evolved, the presence of snakes in domestic life persisted. Artisans continued to produce jewelry, carvings, and household objects bearing serpentine motifs. Families maintained small shrines and talismans within their homes. Marketplaces offered goods adorned with coiled snakes. Children grew up surrounded by these symbols, internalizing lessons of vigilance, patience, and ethical conduct. The serpent's subtle presence became a constant guide, integrating mystical awareness with practical living. Through this integration, humans learned that the extraordinary exists in the ordinary. Serpents in daily life conveyed lessons about cycles, renewal, vigilance, and ethical responsibility without overt instruction. Their quiet presence reminded people that every task and object carries meaning, that the mundane is inseparable from the sacred, and that everyday life offers opportunities for growth, reflection, and spiritual alignment. In this way, the snake becomes an intimate, silent companion, blending protection, guidance, and aesthetic beauty in the rhythms of domestic life. Across centuries, households, workshops, and marketplaces continued to carry serpentine symbols. Rings, bracelets, carvings, utensils, textiles, and pottery bore coiled snakes, silently observing, guiding, and protecting. Their presence was a quiet, enduring reminder of cycles, renewal, and vigilance. The serpent became a living emblem of continuity, patiently teaching humans that life's lessons, ethical principles, and spiritual awareness are embedded in the ordinary, flowing through the daily rhythms of human existence. In every home, from ancient Egypt to India, Mesoamerica, Greece, Africa, and Japan, serpents quietly watched over daily life. They transformed ordinary objects into symbols of protection and wisdom, subtly reminding humans of life's rhythms, ethical principles, and the ongoing cycles of renewal. Through jewelry, carvings, textiles, and utensils, the serpent's watchful presence merged the mystical with the mundane, creating a world in which everyday life was interwoven with spiritual guidance, protection, and ethical reflection. In this way, serpents in daily life were never just decorative. They were vigilant guardians, patient teachers, and symbols of continuity and renewal. Every coiled motif, every engraved figure, and every subtle design carried meaning, transforming ordinary spaces into environments suffused with protection, reflection, and mindfulness. The serpent's quiet presence encouraged humans to live ethically, act mindfully, and embrace the cycles of life, infusing the mundane with the profound, and ensuring that the mystical was always close at hand. Across all cultures and centuries, the snake's integration into daily life demonstrates a timeless principle. The sacred and the ordinary are inseparable. From protective jewelry to carved household items, from decorative textiles to functional tools, snakes silently guide, protect, and teach. Their subtle presence blends vigilance, wisdom, and beauty, ensuring that every moment of daily life carries the potential for reflection, ethical action, and spiritual awareness. The serpent quietly transforms the mundane into something extraordinary, reminding humans that protection, guidance, and renewal are woven into the fabric of every day, silently observing and nurturing the continuity of life. Throughout the ancient world, there are whispers of serpents that are unlike any ordinary creatures. These are the silent watchers, colossal beings said to slumber beneath mountains, temples, and hills. Rarely seen awake, they embody stillness, patience, and a wisdom that spans centuries, even millennia. Their presence is felt more than observed, a subtle weight upon the land, a quiet energy that hums in hidden places, connecting the human and natural worlds in ways that defy ordinary understanding. These serpents are not threats or monsters, but guardians and keepers of ancient knowledge, symbols of endurance, reflection, and the profound calm that comes with ages of observation and silence. In the highlands of ancient India, legends speak of enormous serpents sleeping beneath sacred mountains. For me, villagers living at the base of these peaks spoke of vibrations in the earth, subtle tremors that coincided with the serpent's deep breaths, and shimmering, misty forms glimpsed in early dawn light. Temples built along these mountains were oriented according to the supposed position of the sleeping serpent, and priests often meditated in chambers directly above where it was believed the creature lay. In these tales, the serpent's stillness was a lesson in patience, endurance, and quiet vigilance. Its immense size and unhurried slumber reflected the cycles of the world. Mountains rise slowly, rivers carve valleys over centuries, and life unfolds at a pace that human eyes often fail to perceive. Worshippers and pilgrims who approached the temples were reminded that some of the greatest powers and wisdom in the world are not loud, fast, or visible, but slow, enduring, and silent. In the caves and hills of Greece, the stories of sleeping serpents intertwine with mythology and natural observation. Local legends describe enormous snakes curled beneath hillsides, emerging only during rare celestial events or dramatic shifts in the natural world. These creatures were sometimes considered guardians of hidden treasures or sacred knowledge. Travelers, poets, and philosophers would recount tales of seeing faint, winding shapes beneath moss-covered rocks, or sensing a sudden warmth in the earth that seemed almost conscious. The serpent's silence and immobility were a profound symbol. Wisdom is often patient, it waits, observes, and reveals itself only when the time is right. Monuments and temples were built with care around these sacred hills, honoring both the land and the unseen serpentine watchers beneath it. Their slumber inspired reflection, contemplation, and a recognition of life's deeper rhythms, encouraging humans to move with awareness and patience rather than haste. In Mesoamerican traditions, sleeping serpents were believed to inhabit the foundations of sacred pyramids and ceremonial hills. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity, was often imagined resting deep within the earth, coiled beneath temples, and rising only during times of cosmic alignment. Priests and shamans performed rituals to honor the quiet presence of these silent watchers, leaving offerings in tunnels, underground chambers, and hidden altars. These rituals reinforce the idea that wisdom and protection are not always active or visible. They persist quietly, enduring through the centuries, ready to awaken only when the circumstances require. The imagery of a sleeping enormous serpent beneath the foundations of civilization became a potent reminder that human endeavors, no matter how grand or urgent, unfold within a vast and patient natural order that continues independently of mortal activity. In East Asian traditions, enormous serpents or dragons were often associated with mountains, lakes, and sacred temples. Japanese folklore, for instance, recounts stories of immense serpents lying beneath hills, their massive forms coiled in subterranean layers, breathing so slowly that generations pass without noticing a single motion. Temples constructed in these regions often incorporated subterranean chambers or water features, believed to align with the presence of these quiet guardians. So, the stillness of the serpent was seen as a reflection of cosmic balance. While the world moves and changes above, below, beneath the surface, enduring forces observe patiently, ensuring harmony and continuity. People who meditated near these temples were encouraged to adopt the serpent's stillness, learning the value of observation, patience, and deep reflection. In Norse and Celtic traditions, the idea of sleeping serpents or worms beneath hills and mountains carried both warning and guidance. Tales speak of immense creatures lying in coil beneath ancient burial mounds or sacred groves. Unlike serpents that threaten travelers, these sleeping guardians were rarely active. Their power dormant but undeniable. Druids and shamans interpreted their immobility as a sign of wisdom. Knowledge and power do not need to be flaunted to exist. They endure quietly, waiting for the right moment to influence the world. Legends told of heroes or seekers who, in moments of introspection or ritual, glimpsed the faint outline of these enormous beings beneath the earth. Even in slumber, the serpent symbolized vigilance, continuity, and the enduring presence of natural and spiritual laws that persist beyond human lifespans. The silent watchers are not always imagined beneath mountains or temples. Some traditions place them under vast lakes, rivers, or hidden caves. In African folklore, enormous serpents were said to lie beneath hills or in subterranean tunnels, appearing only when the world's balance was threatened. These creatures embodied patience and stability, reminding communities that life's enduring forces are often invisible, moving only when absolutely necessary. Similarly, in Japan, stories of enormous serpents sleeping in rivers and under hills emphasized the importance of stillness and quiet reflection. Their calm, rarely disturbed presence suggests a wisdom born of centuries of observation, a reminder that not all action needs to be immediate and not all guardians make themselves known. The presence of these silent watchers also serves as a metaphor for the natural cycles of the world. Mountains themselves appear immovable, yet they erode, shift, and transform over millennia. Rivers carve valleys through patient persistence. The sleeping serpent mirrors these rhythms. It does not act without necessity, yet its immense power is always present, shaping the world through the mere fact of its enduring existence. Human activity, in contrast, is fleeting and hurried. By contemplating the silent watcher, humans are reminded of the vast scales of time, patience, and endurance that govern the natural and spiritual realms. Temples, tombs, and sacred hills often serve as points of connection between humans and the silent watchers beneath. In Egypt, serpents beneath pyramids were believed to safeguard the pharaoh's tombs, not by constant vigilance but through the sheer force of their enduring presence. In India, mountains inhabited by sleeping Nagas were centers of pilgrimage, their meditative stillness inspiring seekers to adopt patience and observation in their own lives. In Mesoamerica, serpents beneath pyramids reinforced the cosmic rhythms, teaching that some of the greatest forces in the universe are imperceptible, yet profoundly influential. Across cultures, these myths converge on a single truth. Wisdom, power, and protection do not always manifest through action. Sometimes they reside in quiet, unhurried, and patient endurance. The physicality of the silent watchers is as much a part of their mystique as their stillness. Descriptions speak of massive, coiled bodies that stretch for miles, scales that glint faintly even in darkness, and breathing so slow that it seems synchronized with the pulse of the earth itself. Their eyes, when glimpsed, are pools of ancient knowledge, reflecting centuries of observation, learning, and experience. These serpents are rarely aggressive. Their stillness is a form of meditation, a living reflection of calm power. Their presence is both humbling and comforting. Humbling in the sense that human time and endeavor are brief against such enduring beings, and comforting in the knowledge that such silent guardians watch over the world, ensuring balance and continuity. In Norse and Celtic tales, the silent watchers also carry lessons about restraint. While many mythological serpents or dragons might emerge violently, destroying or challenging humans, the sleeping watchers seldom stir. Their power is inherent. not performative. Heroes and seekers in these tales often learn that approaching such creatures with reverence, patience, and humility is more important than confrontation. The slumbering serpent teaches that true wisdom and strength are quiet, enduring, and observed over time, rather than flaunted or wielded for immediate effect. The Silent Watcher embodies a principle that resonates across cultures. The greatest guardians, the deepest wisdom, and the most enduring forces are often those that are patient, calm, and unseen. Stories of silent watchers also intersect with the natural world. In mountainous regions, seismic activity or deep rumblings are often attributed to the breathing of enormous serpents beneath the earth. Glimmering mist rising from the base of a hill might be explained as the exhalation of a sleeping giant. River tides, shifting sands, or sudden fogs could be interpreted as subtle movements of these hidden beings. Across cultures, the line between natural observation and mystical interpretation is blurred, emphasizing the idea that the world is alive with forces beyond ordinary perception. The Silent Watchers remind humans to cultivate awareness, respect, and attentiveness, observing the rhythms of the land, the patterns of the skies, and the subtle signs of life that often go unnoticed. Meditation and reflection play a central role in many myths surrounding these colossal serpents. In temples above sleeping watchers, priests and seekers would spend hours in silence, listening to the world, observing the rhythms of life, and contemplating the enduring presence beneath their feet. The serpent's stillness became a model for human conduct. Patience, observation, and calm endurance were virtues to cultivate. Those who approached with respect were said to gain insight, spiritual clarity, and a deeper understanding of the natural cycles governing existence. Even the knowledge of such a creature's presence encouraged a sense of humility and connectedness, reminding humans that the world is vast, intricate, and alive with forces beyond immediate perception. The Silent Watchers are also symbols of protection. By lying dormant beneath mountains, hills, or temples, these serpents safeguard treasures, sacred knowledge, and the cycles of nature. Their protection is subtle, relying on presence rather than action. Communities that revered these creatures often left offerings, maintained shrines, or held festivals in honor of their vigilance. The act of acknowledging the Silent Watcher reinforced communal values. Respect for nature, ethical conduct, patience, and an awareness of forces greater than oneself. The enormous serpents, by their mere existence, provided a moral and spiritual framework, blending the mystical with the rhythms of ordinary life. In African folklore, serpents sleeping beneath hills and rivers were believed to embody the memory of the land. Their slumber preserves knowledge of seasons, cycles of rainfall, migration patterns, and the balance of ecosystems. By sleeping quietly, these guardians maintain continuity, ensuring that the natural world remains stable and ordered. Humans interacting with these sacred landscapes are reminded to tread carefully, observe patiently, and respect the silent wisdom beneath their feet. The colossal dormant serpent thus becomes a bridge between human experience and the enduring laws of nature, blending myth, ecology, and philosophy. Even in contemporary imagination, the Silent Watcher endures. Artists, writers, and storytellers continue to evoke colossal serpents sleeping beneath mountains, hills, and temples, drawing inspiration from the ancient myths. Their ability, patience, and quiet vigilance provide a model for reflection in a world that often values speed, visibility, and immediate action. The Silent Watcher teaches that power and wisdom are not always performed. They are enduring, subtle, and often hidden, waiting patiently for the moment when action is necessary or insight can be shared. Across continents and cultures, the myth of the sleeping serpent converges on a universal lesson. That true guardianship, enduring wisdom, and profound power are often found in stillness. Mountains rise slowly, rivers carve valleys over centuries, and life itself unfolds in rhythms that are both patient and inexorable. The colossal sleeping serpent embodies these principles, teaching humans that observations and reverence for the enduring forces of nature are vital for understanding life's deeper currents. Its slumber is not absence. It is vigilance, calm, and an eternal presence that shapes the world quietly, subtly, and profoundly. The Silent Watchers remind humans that not all action needs to be immediate, and that not all guardians announce themselves with noise or force. Their lessons are timeless, Endurance, reflection, respect, and patience are the foundations of wisdom. The enormous serpents beneath mountains, temples, and hills are more than creatures of legend. They are symbols of the continuity of life, the calm power of observation, and the enduring presence of ancient wisdom in the natural world. Their quiet vigilance offers guidance, protection, and inspiration to those who walk above them, reminding humans that even in stillness, there is immense power, profound knowledge, and eternal calm. Through these myths, humans are encouraged to cultivate a similar presence in their own lives, to observe patiently, endure quietly, and act only when necessary. The silent watcher becomes a metaphor for wisdom itself, teaching that understanding grows not through haste, but through patience, reflection, and attentive observation. Across the landscapes of human imagination, these colossal serpents lie coiled beneath mountains, temples, and hills, offering an enduring testament to the power of stillness, the depth of ancient knowledge, and the quiet, patient rhythm of the world. In every culture, from India to Greece, Mesoamerica to Japan, and Africa to Northern Europe, the myth of the silent watcher continues to inspire. These enormous serpents, rarely active yet eternally present, embody the stillness, endurance, and wisdom of the ancient world. They teach humans that some of the greatest forces are unseen, some of the most profound knowledge is silent, and some of the most enduring guardians lie in patient wait beneath the surface of everyday life. In contemplating these silent watchers, humans are reminded of the beauty of stillness, the power of observation, and the timeless rhythm that governs both the natural and spiritual worlds. Across the ancient world, whispers tell of enormous serpents that lie in deep slumber beneath mountains, temples, and hills. These creatures are not the ordinary serpents that glide across forests or rivers, nor are they the wild, dangerous beasts of popular imagination. They are the silent watchers, immense beings whose stillness embodies patience, enduring wisdom, and the deep rhythms of the earth itself. Rarely stirring, their presence is felt rather than seen, a vibration in the soil, a subtle shimmer in the air, a quiet energy that hums beneath the surface of the world. They are guardians not of immediate action, but of observation, endurance, and the profound calm that only centuries of slumber can grant. Through these myths, humans learn that some of the greatest forces in knowledge are not revealed in haste, but are quietly maintained in patience and silence. In the towering mountains of ancient India, villagers spoke of colossal serpents sleeping beneath sacred peaks. Their breath, deep and slow, seemed to cause gentle tremors in the ground, felt as subtle vibrations that could unsettle only the most sensitive observer. Mist sometimes gathered mysteriously along the slopes, reflecting light in fleeting glimpses that suggested immense, coiled forms hidden beneath rocks. Temples built along these mountains were deliberately aligned to the supposed position of the serpent below, and priests meditated in subterranean chambers, seeking to connect with the quiet vigilance of these colossal beings. In these tales, the serpent's slumber was a metaphor for patience and endurance. It does not move without purpose, yet its presence sustains balance, protects the sacred, and influences the rhythm of life above. Pilgrims journeying to these temples were reminded that wisdom and protection are not always loud or immediate. Sometimes they exist quietly, enduring through time, subtly shaping the world. In Greece, hills and mountains carried stories of sleeping serpents intertwined with mythology. Travelers spoke of enormous snakes coiled beneath moss-covered rocks or hidden caves, their forms suggested by faint impressions in the soil or the warmth of the earth. Local poets and philosophers interpreted these creatures as guardians of knowledge or treasure, rarely stirring except during rare celestial alignments. Temples erected near these hills often incorporated subterranean spaces, reflecting the belief that the watchers below influenced the lives of those above. The Greeks revered the stillness of these serpents, seeing in it a symbol of patience, foresight, and the slow unfolding of life's lessons. To observe the world with care, to wait, and to act only when necessary was to emulate the silent wisdom of these colossal beings. Mesoamerican civilizations carried similar myths of sleeping serpents beneath pyramids and ceremonial hills. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity, was imagined as resting deep within the foundations of sacred structures, stirring only during rare cosmic events. Priests performed underground rituals to honor these watchers, leaving offerings in hidden chambers and tunnels. The stillness of these serpents taught that protection and wisdom do not require constant activity. Their patience and enduring presence reinforced the idea that human endeavors, no matter how grand, unfold within a vast natural and cosmic order. Farmers, artisans, and rulers alike understood that the forces sustaining life and civilization often operate quietly, beneath perception, and require respect and acknowledgement rather than forceful engagement. In East Asia, enormous serpents, often associated with dragons, were believed to lie beneath mountains, rivers, and sacred temples. Japanese folklore recounts white serpents coiled in subterranean layers, breathing so slowly that entire generations pass without noticing any movement. Temples constructed in alignment with these serpents often included underground chambers or water features, meant to honor and harmonize with their quiet presence. Meditation practices encouraged humans to mirror this stillness, to cultivate patience, observation, and reflection. The enormous serpents, silent beneath the hills, embody a cosmic rhythm that humans are invited to observe and learn from, reminding them that true wisdom often manifests in endurance and restraint rather than action. Norse and Celtic traditions also preserve tales of sleeping serpents beneath hills and burial mounds. These enormous creatures, sometimes called worms, are rarely depicted as aggressive. Instead, they lie in patient slumber, their immobility a testament to enduring power and deep knowledge. Druids and shamans often considered these watchers as custodians of the earth, its memory, and its cycles. Only when humans approached with reverence and patience might a serpent reveal its presence, a faint shimmer, a slight movement, or a subtle tremor in the earth. The silent watcher thus becomes a teacher. It models restraint, observation, and enduring wisdom, demonstrating that the most profound power often lies in stillness rather than activity. These myths also connect with the natural world. In mountainous regions, tremors or seismic activity were sometimes attributed to the breathing of enormous subterranean serpents. Mist rising from valleys could be interpreted as exhalations of sleeping guardians. Shifting sands, fogs, or sudden river swells were sometimes thought to signal the slow movement of these hidden beings. In African folklore, serpents slumbering beneath hills and rivers were said to embody the memory of the land, preserving knowledge of seasons, rainfall, migration patterns, and ecosystem balance. Their stillness ensures continuity and stability, teaching humans that patience and observation are essential to understanding the deeper rhythms of life. Temples and sacred structures often mark the presence of these silent watchers. In Egypt, serpents beneath pyramids were believed to safeguard the tombs of pharaohs, not through active defense but by the sheer immensity of their enduring presence. In India, pilgrims ascended mountains inhabited by sleeping nagas, meditating on patience and the hidden forces of nature. Mesoamerican pyramids aligned with cosmic cycles were thought to house Quetzalcoatl in dormant form, emphasizing that some of the greatest powers operate silently beneath the surface. In all these traditions, the lesson is clear: wisdom, power, and protection endure in patient stillness, acting subtly rather than openly. Descriptions of these silent watchers emphasize their immense scale and calm. Legends speak of coiled forms stretching for miles, scales that glint faintly even in darkness, and breathing so slow that it mirrors the rhythm of the earth itself. Their eyes, when glimpsed, are said to hold centuries of observation and knowledge. Despite their power, these serpents rarely disturb humans, teaching that true strength and wisdom are subtle, enduring, and patient. They embody a philosophy that resonates across cultures. Vigilance, endurance, and awareness do not require constant action, but a calm, observant presence. The silent watchers also symbolize restraint. Unlike mythological dragons that erupt in fury or serpents that strike violently, these enormous beings remain dormant, their power inherent and undeniable, but never flaunted. Heroes and seekers who encounter such creatures in tales are often rewarded for humility, patience, and respect, learning that wisdom manifests not in immediate force but in enduring observation. Their slumber reinforces the idea that the greatest guardians are often those who do not act unless necessary, and that true knowledge emerges from patience and reflection rather than haste. In some traditions, these serpents are also custodians of treasures, sacred knowledge, or the cycles of nature. They safeguard life's continuity, ensuring that balance is maintained in the world. Communities honor them through rituals, offerings, and festivals, reinforcing moral values and awareness of the unseen forces that shape existence. By acknowledging these silent watchers, humans internalize lessons of humility, patience, and respect, understanding that endurance and vigilance can be as powerful as action. Meditation, reflection, and reverence are central to the myths of sleeping serpents. Priests and seekers in temples above these colossal beings would spend hours in quiet contemplation, aligning their breath and awareness with the perceived rhythm of the serpent below. By mirroring the stillness of the watcher, humans cultivated patience, mindfulness, and insight into natural and spiritual cycles. The slumbering serpent becomes a model of profound calm, teaching that even immense power does not need to be displayed to influence the world. Observation, patience, and awareness are the silent forms of wisdom. The silent watchers serve as a reminder of the temporal scale of life. Mountains rise slowly, rivers carve valleys over centuries, and civilizations flourish and fade, all under the gaze of enduring natural forces. The colossal serpents beneath the earth embody these rhythms, showing that patience and longevity offer a perspective impossible to achieve in the fleeting span of a human lifetime. Their immobility encourages reflection, humility, and appreciation for the vast and intricate tapestry of life. Legends across cultures converge on a universal principle. True guardianship, wisdom, and enduring power are often found in stillness. Mountains, rivers, and hills bear the weight of these sleeping watchers, who silently shape the world through presence rather than action. From India to Greece, Mesoamerica to Japan, and Africa to Northern Europe, these myths celebrate the virtue of patience, the power of observation, and the calm endurance of forces far older than human memory. Even in contemporary imagination, the silent watchers endure. Artists, writers, and storytellers evoke massive serpents beneath hills, mountains, and temples, drawing inspiration from myths that connect the visible and invisible worlds. Their calm endurance serves as a model for reflection in a modern era, often dominated by speed and noise. The silent watcher reminds us that the deepest wisdom, the most enduring protection, and the profoundest power often exist quietly, patiently, and invisibly. In every culture, these sleeping serpents teach enduring lessons: that vigilance can be silent, that strength does not require display, and that wisdom grows through patience, observation, and reflection. Mountains, hills, and temples are not merely physical spaces, they are sites of contemplation, attuned to the quiet rhythm of the enormous beings beneath. In acknowledging these watchers, humans learn humility, endurance, and a deeper connection to the natural and spiritual worlds. Across centuries, the myth of the silent watcher persists as a universal symbol of stillness, wisdom, and patient guardianship. Their immense, coiled forms, resting beneath mountains, temples, and hills, serve as enduring reminders that the most profound forces are often unseen. They teach humans that observation, patience, and reflection are as vital as action, and that the quiet rhythms of life are powerful and sacred. In contemplating these enormous serpents, humans are invited to align themselves with the slow, patient, and enduring currents of the earth, gaining insight into both the visible and invisible patterns that govern existence. The silent watchers remind us that some of the greatest powers do not announce themselves. Some of the deepest wisdom is hidden. In the stillness beneath mountains, hills, and temples, these enormous serpents endure, teaching that vigilance, patience, and calm observation are forces as profound as any active intervention. Their quiet presence bridges the human, natural, and spiritual worlds, offering guidance, protection, and insight to those who walk above them. Through every culture, from India to Greece, Mesoamerica to Japan, and Africa to Northern Europe, the sleeping serpents beneath mountains and hills stand as symbols of eternal calm, enduring wisdom, and patient guardianship. They remind us that life's most profound truths are often subtle, hidden, and slowly revealed, that the greatest power can be quiet, and that observation and stillness are as essential as action. In their immobile slumber, they offer humanity a timeless lesson that enduring wisdom, protection, and calm persist quietly, shaping the world in ways often unseen but deeply felt. Even today, the silent watchers endure in imagination, art, and reflection. Their colossal coiled forms beneath mountains, temples, and hills inspire awe, meditation, and a recognition of life's deep rhythms. They teach that patience, observation, and restraint are forms of profound power, and that the unseen forces shaping our world are constant, enduring, and wise. In contemplating the silent watchers, humans are reminded that the universe moves according to rhythms far beyond immediate perception, and that true guardianship and wisdom often lie in patient, quiet presence rather than active display.